Cold in here?
Little.
A little? Cold, cold?
You can always turn it up if you want. It's been
Stop.
up for the last 6 months. You have the coach. Yeah.
I don't know what's up. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. I think last time we began the Meccan and the chapter about Meccan and Medinan eras. Right. And we began to go over just a general landscape, so to speak, societal realities of Arabia prior to the Prophet ﷺ coming on scene. So we looked at the environment, the actual terrain and climate, social status, the social realities, the religious realities, social life and identity, beliefs. Now, some of the common practices back then include common haram practices, so to speak. Right? Alcohol was there. There was not comparable to our current circumstances, but there were brothels. There was engagement in relationships outside of marriage, even extra to marriage, with some very bizarre practices as well, right? For example, I don't even want to go into examples, but if you research the pre-Sirah, in fact, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha has a hadith about some of the relationship practices that they had back then, the haram relationship practices they had. And you'll find that you'll find similar stories on YouTube of people doing the same exact things today, right? Also, body exposure, right? Again, not as common practice as what you and widespread as what you find today, but it was still there. As we said last time, people would do tawaf naked, right? They do tawaf naked. Forms of gambling were present. So when you come across hadith, as you'll come across once you get to year 3 with Mishkat, you'll find that the Prophet ﷺ prohibited dice, playing dice, prohibited certain forms of transactions because they go back to gambling. They were forms of gambling back then. Dice back then, saying dice back then is like saying I played slots today, right? You don't disconnect it from gambling. Even though today you can say I played dice, you could disconnect it from gambling maybe, right? Even though people still gamble with dice, but not as widespread not as common practice as back then. So
nowadays I've seen people saying that like even playing dice with like for example a game like Monopoly or like those games that have nothing to do with gambling is I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, some scholars like the Hanafis say that any form of meaningless entertainment is not allowed, right? Many other scholars say it's discouraged and shouldn't be practiced. But you'll have other scholars who say no, what was meant by, as I follow, by those ahadith were gambling. Clearly you're not gambling when it comes to Monopoly and whatnot. Now the common question, should I play poker online with fake money? It's not gambling. Gambling is with real money, right? Is it a waste of time? Yes. Should they be doing it? They should be finding something better to do with their time than playing poker, right? But is it gambling? It's not gambling. Gambling is actual physical money, right? Gambling was there. You did have the problem of economic inequality. Right? Economic inequality. You had people who are very, very rich and people who are very, very poor, right? And the richer would take advantage of the poor. You have things like that. For example, interest, right? Interest was a means of the richer getting richer and keeping the poor poor. said economic inequality. So there's some of the common haram practices, and what you should take from this, I hope you already have taken, is that the society the Prophet ﷺ grew up in and he began his da'wah in is not so different than our society, right? This fantasy of we're going to go and live in a pure society where there's no haram to be seen and whatnot. Go look. Please let me know if you find any, right? You know, obviously some societies are healthier than other societies, right? But at least don't feel down that this is what's all around you. And don't feel that your ability to succeed as a believer is limited because of what's around you. Clearly, that wasn't the case for the companions. They grew up in this. Some of them, many of them used to engage in these things prior to becoming believers. That didn't limit their iman, nor did it prevent them from being the best, right? And sometimes when you have to engage these things, I mean, you have to deal with these realities, the presence of these things, and you do it with iman, it forces you to build tawakkul in ways people who are living in, more conservative societies don't build. You have to learn to practice certain practices that you don't really need to practice in other places. Now, as an American Muslim community, we should always strive to that. Let's be very clear here. You should strive to building a healthier society that is more conducive to iman, more protective of our iman. That is a goal. But if we're here now, don't think for a second that means you can't be your opportunities for being a better Muslim, a better scholar, whatever is somehow, prevented or limited or impeded, right? So see, these are some of the common haram practices. Some of the how do I word it? Venues of influence. The primary venue of influence, the influencers back then were the poets. Back then, a person can say 2 lines of poetry and completely destroy the reputation of an entire tribe for generations. It's not an exaggeration. Completely destroy a tribe, their reputation for generations, right? So this was very dangerous stuff. And people sometimes get into poetry and attack people and get themselves killed. It could hypothetically start wars, right? And it can end wars as well. It can end major problems. This was the venue of influence. Like today, me growing up, it was the mainstream media. That's how you influence. If you want people to believe something, you just put it in mainstream media. When the second Iraq war happened back in the early 2000s, they weren't planning on making the same mistake as they made in Vietnam. So what do? They started priming the society into accepting this war. Saddam Hussein, massive weapons of mass destruction. He hates you, hates your freedom, priming society. And when the war actually started, they started putting on mainstream media like all these cool fighter jet planes. Come take a tour of the plane that we use and whatnot. They made it a positive thing, right? That was poetry back then, right? And the poetry really shows you what society valued back then. And so you'll find in poetry, you'll always find a story of love, right? There's some love affair going on. Courage. They'll always boast about their courage and what they do, how they, do things that are dangerous, and generosity, right? Generosity. So you'll find these themes always in these poems to show you what the society valued and show you what these influencers wanted to influence, right? So poetry was incredibly important. So now when you look at the Quran isn't poetry per se, but it is a means of language, right? And so when verses of the Quran would come, they take it seriously even though they didn't believe in it because they understand the impact. So to draw an analogy, it's like if revelation were to be given today, it comes through one of the mainstream medias, right? And it's all set up that way with all the very different sophisticated ways of capturing people's attention and keeping people in tune and whatnot. Remember COVID? I remember when COVID first started, you'd look at the mainstream media, number of cases in America, 17. We're just looking, when is 18 going to come across, right? And these are all ways just to keep people's attention and keep viewers engaged in their, you know, and whatnot. So poetry was incredibly important. When it comes to individuals, right? Individuals or leaders, I should say leaders, leadership. That's a better word. I mean, they took their leaders very seriously. But how was their structure of leadership? It wasn't a centralized government, right? There's no such thing as this is the top of the food chain, so to speak, right? There was no one guy. There was no sophisticated process of getting that individual into that position. It wasn't a monarchy where it's the son of the previous ruler or anything like that. But rather, the leader of a tribe was chosen by the tribe, right? Chosen by the tribe based on certain characteristics that were necessary for leadership back then, right? So imagine with me, you're in Arabia, the climate is very harsh, resources are incredibly scarce, and you have a group of 50, 70, 100 people, right? How do you keep them alive? This is how they're thinking. We need somebody who can keep us alive and protect us if we're attacked, right? So in such a climate, in such an environment, you need people who are generous, right? They're not going to be somebody who, how can I get more for myself? Or else they're all going to die. They need to be generous. They need to be forbearing. Because when your tribesman does something incorrect, you can't lose them. Because if you lose 1 out of 50 people, you've lost a lot, right? So there's scarcity there. You need somebody who's halim, forbearing, patient. You need somebody who's courageous, right? You need somebody who's wise, who understands the realities, understands how to navigate them, etc. So when I'm giving you these characteristics, you might be thinking, aren't these the same characteristics that Islam is really promoting and emphasizing and highlighting? The answer is yes, right? Not everything in Arabian society was wrong. Some of them were actually really good. But where Islam kind of takes society and shifts them a little bit is not in terms of what characteristics were important, but why they adopted those characteristics. So with poets, I'm a courageous person. I'm courageous. I muster the courage to do these things and whatnot. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, keep your courage, but do it for the sake of Allah. So it's not a change in character, but rather a shift in reasoning, why you do it and what you employ those characteristics. So the chief of a tribe obviously is of the same bloodline. All those people are of the same blood, but the chief has nothing to do with who's the son of the previous chief. Nothing to do with that, right? It was simply who had the characteristics, the personality to be able to keep the tribe alive. So when the Quran comes and is praising those who feed people, praises those who are patient and forgiving, praises those who are generous, this resonated with them. And this was one of the strategies of the Quran that you see a lot in the Meccan era. And a lot of the ahadith that promote behaviors that are social behaviors, a lot of those were being said in the Meccan era. And the reason is to create that overlap between what Arabs already believe and accepted and what Islam is promoting. It's like, hey, we're not so different, but we have something better and something different than the places where we do differ. Right? So the Quran captured the Arab society by promoting the things that they were already promoting, or some of the things that they were already promoting. Now, in our times today, are all of American values different than Muslim values? No. Part of American values is you don't cut in line. It's really offensive if you do, like really offensive if you do. I don't know if you've been in other parts of the world that even understand the concept of a line, right? Let alone be offended if somebody cuts. If you cut in other parts of the world, you're just doing your thing. You're a smart person like Trump, that makes me smart. Among other values that you'll find overlap between America and Muslim values. Now, it could be a few values, it could be more values, but the idea is a Muslim appreciating the Meccan era, appreciating how Allah was speaking the Meccan era, right? Will understand that I can use what we share to at least open their ears to listen to Islam, right? This isn't a kumbaya, we're all the same, and please accept us. This is, hey, I have something to tell you. You know how you all like this? We like it too. Let me tell you about the other things that we like. Does that make sense? Right? So you have these leadership characteristics. What else is the venues of influence in Arabian society? Obviously money, like pretty much anywhere and anytime. The more money you had, the more influential you were. The reality of human society. And so what you'll find in the Meccan verses is a lot of talk about Allah is the one who gives the rizq. Allah gives the rizq. He gives it to some, withholds it from some, right? Okay. So those are the venues of influence, and this is just the Meccan reality, Arabian reality, prior to the Prophet. Now, what we need to do now is understand the realities of believers during the Meccan era. All right. What were the realities of the believers during Meccan era? So imagine yourself as, let's say, give me a Meccan companion, Bilal, for example. Imagine yourself as the daughter of the Prophet, Fatima, or one of the daughters of the Prophet, radiallahu ta'ala anhum, alayhi salatu wassalam. Imagine yourself as Ibn Mas'ud, right? Imagine yourself as Umar ibn Khattab, Abu Bakr, Khadija, whoever was there for the time of the Meccan era. What were the realities of Muslims during the Meccan era? So let's look at their economic situation. Was there an economy? Did the Muslims have an economy? The Muslims themselves? No, there was none, right? They had no economy. I mean, they had individual wealth, but they didn't have an economy that was a Muslim economy, built by the Muslims, employed in the interest of Muslims. They didn't have that, right? Now, were all the companions poor? No. I mean, the companions themselves, there was a range of individual wealth. All right. There was a range of individual wealth. Now, the Prophet, was he working while he was a prophet? No, as far as I know, he was. His work was a da'wah. His work was to call to Allah. Well, how did he sustain himself? How were the Muslims sustained? How were the needs of Muslims met? There were some slaves who were Muslims, right? How did the Muslims, how did they take care of those slaves? How was the Prophet able to eat, drink, and whatnot without any food, without any income? for himself. Huh? If I was one of that.
Yeah, some people that were donating to others.
Through donations, right? There were a group of wealthy Muslims, including, Khadija, Abu Bakr. You don't have to write this down, right? I'm just kind of putting it here. Abu Bakr, right? Maybe Uthman, pretty well to do, even though he's a young man, among others. There were a group of very wealthy Muslims who pretty much sustained all of the Muslim community. This is how it started. It didn't remain that way, but this is how it started, right? So who was sustaining the Prophet? His wife was. Khadija was. Khadija was incredibly wealthy. Incredibly wealthy. She used all of her money to support the Muslims during the time until she died. I mean, she died probably with very little, right? Because she used it all. Abu Bakr was the one who's constantly buying slaves. Those who became Muslim, Abu Bakr would go and buy them, even for incredibly inflated prices, right? Now, in our times today, you're looking at all the Muslim institutions, you're looking at IOK, whatever. How do they come about? Because there's a government that's supporting it. You look at for example, the churches. In my neck of the woods, in Rancho Santa Margarita, there is a street literally called the Street of God, or the Path of God. And why is it called the Path of God? Because there are 9 churches next to each other. 9. 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 9. Right? And I'm sitting there looking, they have these parking lots, they have these big structures, they have the latest technology and whatnot. And I know it's like a very small group of people who attend each one. A small group of people attend each one, right? You don't have, when I tell priests or not rabbis, but priests or pastors or people from the Christian community that every Jum'ah we get 1,000 people, which in SoCal, it's a medium size khutbah, right? They're like 1,000? Wow. Well, how do you all sustain yourselves? How? Well, I'm guessing there are grants, there are major endowments that people before made that are funding these things, right? We don't have that here. So IOK was built by who? The donations of the community. But the majority of the donations are going to come from a small group of people. And this is just the reality of donations, by the way. Muslim and non-Muslim. 80% of the funds come from 20% of the donors, right? You look at Irvine, they bought the village, right? They bought those 3 buildings. And it was a huge project. I don't even know how much it cost. In the end, it was 3 people who funded the majority of that. 3 individuals. You look at Rahma Center, for example, 20 million for the 2 buildings, not more. It was pretty much purchased by one person, right? And what does that say? It says, this is just the reality. We need people who are wealthy to sustain us. Because while we build ourselves to a little bit more plausible systems of sustainability that relies less on donations and more on, government oversight or centralized oversight, this is how we build ourselves, right? So that's a part of the economic situation. Did they have any institutions? Well, let's put it this way. Any institutions? No, there were no Islamic schools. There were no masajid. There were no endowments. There were no scholarship programs. There was no, hifz program or anything like that. When they wanted to learn, they would meet up in somebody's house and they would learn. It's literally what they had. They used whatever they had. And what's beautiful is that when you listen to the stories of American Muslims, when they came in the 70s and the 80s and kind of the beginning of the da'wah, that's exactly what they were doing. A lot of masajid started because a group of people met up in a home and they would pray Jum'ah together. Then they said, you know what, we're getting too much. Let's see if we can buy a property, right? And they did. When you look at shuyukh, scholars who would come and visit, right? They wouldn't be hosted in, 5-star hotels or anything like that. I'm not bashing it. I'm just showing you where we were. Somebody would invite them to their home and they would sleep in their home. Sometimes the home they were invited to were a bunch of guys in a college right? And then all they had to offer was a mattress on the floor. But they didn't, right? You have, for example, the scholar, Canadian Muslim scholar, Jamal Badawi, Dr. Jamal Badawi. Has anyone heard of this guy? No, I mean he's one of the pioneers of scholarship in America. Nobody has heard of him, right? When he started to come to the West and come to America, he'd go to a bus station, open the phone book, the yellow pages, and just find any Muslim name and call them. This is what he was doing back in the 70s. This is what the Muslims were doing in the Meccan era. They'd meet up by somebody's home, and the Prophet would teach them a few things, right? When they would go to the Kaaba, they wouldn't pray a Jama'ah prayer. They would pray kind of individually. If it was a Jama'ah, it's kind of a small family. Like the Prophet would go with Khadija and maybe his daughters, and they would do Salah. That's it, right? So there were no institutions. When it comes to, for example, the psychological situation of the believers, what do you think was their state of mind? You're being bullied. You're constantly being threatened. Right? There are people who cannot stand you and who are much more powerful than you. You're not allowed to even fight back. You're not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying they treat you bad, respond in a good way. Right? What is the psychological state here? You all tell me.
I think trust in Allah.
That's what we think, right? Let's just be honest. They are human beings.
Demoralized.
They're probably demoralized, right? When you have Khabbab ibn al-Arat coming to the Prophet saying, Ya Rasulullah, istansir lana. We ask Allah to help us. That's not a moment of tawakkul, right? That is a moment of, Ya Rasul, man, like, for how long? And Khabbab was someone who was tortured brutally, right? So you can imagine demoralization. They were demoralized. What else? Scared, all right? I think the Prophet never felt fear, was never scared. He felt it. He felt the fear. What else? You all that comfortable in life? You don't you know what it feels like?
Maybe like doubtful.
There are doubts, right? Where is this really going? Now, I don't mean doubts in, is this the truth? I mean doubts in, where is this going? Where is this going to end? Notice something. There's nothing, as far as I remember, nothing in the Meccan surahs that promises the Prophet ﷺ victory. Nothing. The Prophet had no idea for a very long time that he is the last messenger. He didn't know. He didn't know whether this would end with a natural death or he'd be killed. Later, it was revealed to him. But earlier on, he just saw himself as a prophet from among the prophets. All right. So where is this going? They had no idea. What another Trump presidency is going to bring, we don't know. We have no clue. Right? What else were they feeling?
You might feel like almost like left out or kicked out.
Betrayed, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
They felt betrayed. Quraysh went against the tribal system. You don't do this to one of your own. no matter what. You don't do that. Just like Muslim Americans feel betrayed because the West completely turned their backs on what they always boast about, human rights and whatnot, when in the context of Palestine. And it's just, subhanAllah, it is divine engineering that Ukraine happened a year or two before Gaza happened. It's almost like it's hard to not see that this is Allah saying, this is Allah exposing their double standards, right? So the feeling of being betrayed, that's addressed in the Meccan era, directly and indirectly, right? Anything else? What else?
They possibly wanted to fight back.
What's that?
They wanted to fight back.
Okay, so they wanted to fight back. Why would they want to fight back?
Why not?
Okay, so the feeling of retaliation. Right. Anything else? How would you feel if you were living those circumstances?
Maybe it's like retaliation, but like frustration.
Okay, frustration. What exactly would you be frustrated about?
You would see the problems in a, like, you know, in a bad condition. Like as it would get worse and worse over the years, you would see like that feeling that can come out of
The feeling of frustration, right? Because you could be frustrated for different reasons. The feeling of frustration that you see your beloved prophet being attacked, and literally there are hadith with the companion saying that the prophet was being choked with the intestine of a camel, and we couldn't do anything. We were just watching. We couldn't do anything, right?
So they felt like emasculated.
I wouldn't go to that extent, but you know, when you want to help someone, and you know you should, but you can't, you don't have the power to, you're prevented from helping. That's an experience. Just like today, we look onto Gaza. We all want to help. We all want to do something. What can we do? The only thing we can do is go on the streets and shout, so to speak, right? And we are. But the feeling of frustration, see, that frustration can lead into other things, like a feeling like the want to completely disengage, right? You all are people of double standards. I hate you. I'm never going to talk to you again, right? To disengage. You can't do that, right? So we find verses in the Quran coming and saying, go back, go talk to them again, keep talking to them. You can't disengage. You have to keep going, right? Among other things, right? So when you read the verses that are from the Meccan era, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the people it's being revealed to. That helps you better identify, you know, how those verses are relevant to your life today, whether at the individual level or greater than the individual level. So what I want you to do as a kind of homework is to read in Surah An-Naml, the 27th chapter, verses 15 to 44. Right? Read them, but read them before you start reading them. Take a minute or two and imagine yourself in Mecca with the Prophet during the Meccan era. Okay? Feel oppressed, feel betrayed, feel those feelings, get in touch with them, and then read these verses. And think of how it must have felt for these verses to be revealed to you while going through those circumstances. Does that make sense? Surah An-Naml, chapter 27, verses 15 to 44. Before reading them, put yourself in the shoes of the companions while they were in Mecca. Get yourself in the mindset of an oppressed person, like a really oppressed person. A person who has no economic means, no military means, nobody fighting for you, nothing. And you have people attacking you and enemies who are constantly threatening you and bullying you, right? Get yourself in that mental, emotional state, and then read these verses, trying to figure out what this must have meant for the companions so that you understand why Allah is telling us these stories in the first place. All right. So when you look at these, you'll see that the aspects of Iman that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really focuses on in the Meccan chapters include things like tawakkul, patience, right? This idea of delayed gratification. In other words, your hasanat are in the afterlife. Your reward is in the afterlife, delayed gratification. Right? You have a reward, you just have to trust the fact that you can't see that reward right now. Right. You have, for example, hope is focused on fear of only Allah, among other things. Now, when you start taking the aspects of Iman that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is building in this era, really focusing on, and then you compare it to what we we're just talking about over here, now we have a whole different dynamic that we're dealing with. Tawakkul is no longer this. The Prophet told us to have tawakkul, therefore you should have tawakkul. This is what tawakkul means, and this is how you have tawakkul, and that's it. It's not this dry, lecture that we've heard 35 times. It's not just another khutbah that when people hear it, oh, this again. I've already heard this before. No, this is real life stuff. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching them how to have tawakkul in light of their particular circumstances. You're dealing with this stuff, all right, this is how you're going to have tawakkul. You're going through this stuff so that you can build tawakkul. Now, this is real life stuff, not khutbah stuff. Among other things, right? So what you see is the aspects of Iman, why they were so strongly built in the companions is because when Allah told them to do these things, He was telling them to do these things while they were going through something. It wasn't disconnected from a particular circumstance, right? So they felt demoralized. Well, delayed gratification, have hope, right? You feel afraid, scared. You shouldn't be scared of them. You should be scared of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So the Meccan era is not just some random verses that only focuses on Tawheed, and that's it. It's focusing on Tawheed because that's what's needed in the circumstances. Of course, Tawheed is needed in all circumstances, but especially when Muslims are weak. Any questions on that? No. So going into the actual book, what is meant by Mecki and Madani? One of the most common ways to classify verses of chapters of the Quran is to classify them into Makki and Madani. That is why the word Makki or Madani is not found written next to the title of a surah in most copies of the Quran today. That is why the word. This is a classification based on time, not place. All right. This is a classification based on what? Time, not place. Isn't Mecca and Medina a place? So what does Sheikh Farhan mean that it's meant by it classifies time, not place? All right, let's continue. There is a common misunderstanding that Mecca means the surah was revealed in Mecca and Medina, and Madani means it was revealed in Medina. In other words, a lot of people think that what's meant by a Mecca surah is that the Prophet was literally in Mecca when it was revealed. Right? Now, after the Prophet immigrated, were there days where he was in Mecca? Yeah. He did Umrah, he did Hajj, he opened Mecca. So there was a series, maybe a few weeks of his life post-immigration where he was in Mecca. And there were verses that were revealed to him while he was there. What Shaykh Farhan is saying is that just because they were revealed to him in Mecca does not make those verses or those surahs Mecca surahs. So for example, Surah Al-Nasr, إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا. I believe maybe no. Let me give you another example. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, the verse or part of the verse, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم, this was for sure revealed in Hajj when the Prophet was in Mecca. It's not a Mecca verse, right? Similarly, a Madani surah or verse does not mean it was revealed to the Prophet while he was physically in Medina. What's meant by it is in terms of time. So we know that the Prophet was a prophet for how many years? 23. Of those 23 years, how many were in Mecca? 13 years in Mecca, leaving 10 years in Medina. Right? So the verses and the surahs that were revealed during these 13 years are called Mecca. And the verses and the surahs that were revealed in these 10 years were called Madani. Now, the Prophet ﷺ wasn't the one who classified the Quran into these two categories, but rather the companions and those after did. Why? Just to help facilitate more accurate tafsir. Right? Just like the verse numbers, you see 14, 15, 16, that's not something that was there during the time of the companions. And this is actually something I forgot to tell you all when we did the preservation of the Quran. Right? When Uthman completed the standardized version, it was all of the words, excluding the dots of the letters, the diacritical marks, and the verse numbers. These weren't in the Quran, right? I can't really forget that. It's an important part. So let me show you the So this right here is the oldest copy or page from the Quran, of the Quran that we have. And it's carbon dated to the time, between the time of the Prophet and Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Right? I remember this came out like a decade ago. A museum out in the UK got a hold of this and they carbon dated it. They said it goes back to what would be the time of the life of the Prophet to Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Take this one. So this is kind of how it would have looked when Uthman radiallahu ta'ala finished the standard copy of the Quran. So what do you notice? There are no dots above and under the letters. There are no diacritical marks, the harakat, and there are no verse numbers. You have these kind of diamond-looking dots, right? These indicate the end of verses. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you have it right here. Can anyone figure out what it is? Yeah. Where do you see that? What is this? What surah is this? How do you know that? له الأسماء الحسنى, right? Very nice. So طه ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى. You see the dots right here. إلا تذكرة لمن يخشى. Right. The dots and the diacritical marks and the verse numbers came during the Umayyad time. So people, especially non-Muslims, come and say, oh, you take one of these words, there are 20 different ways you can put those dots. Ha ha ha. Well, let me show you something, Mr. Critic. I'm going to write a sentence here. I want you all to figure out what I'm saying. What does it say?
Catatone.
It took Tayyib all of 3 seconds to figure it out. All I removed were the unnecessary, the vowels that were not needed, that don't need to be there in order for you to understand it. I put the I here because I can just put S. That makes sense? But you figured it out. The diacritical marks are the vowels, right? The dots, from context clues, you can figure it out. It can't be 20 different variations because not all of them are going to make sense. But when there could be discrepancy, there could be 2 different variations, you find that they put the dots, right?
In the original version?
Yeah, so let's see here. So we can find, see? Right here. See the tha has 3 dots? Umkuthu. It's there because maybe there are other words that were used that had it been under or to, it could cause confusion. Yeah.
Like reading the Quran, that he would stop at the end of every verse, and like it was known to the companions. Do you know?
I understand what you're saying. So how do they know what is the entire verse or what separates a verse from a verse? The answer is, number one, if we were to remove all of them, right, and say this is all one verse, the entire Quran is one verse, does it change the meaning in any way? Not at all, right? So the companions, remember, when the Prophet was given verses, he would say, these verses go here before these verses, that verses. So that's one way of determining the ends of verses, right? The other way is where the Prophet would stop. While he was reciting, he would pause. So they would assume the pause is the end of a verse, right? And remember, the Prophet also taught people the Quran. People memorize the Quran from the Prophet ﷺ. But even if there is inaccuracies, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, there are inaccuracies in terms of the ends of verses. It makes no difference because it doesn't affect the meaning in any way, right? And there are certain verses where the stop seems very out of place, right? Wouldn't it make sense if it was just continued? Like Surah Shu'ara, for example, you have so many verses, right? It could be, okay, well, if you remove this verse, it would make more sense. And keep these 2 verses as one. It would make more sense in terms of, whatever. But it doesn't really matter in the end. That's just the Qur'an and kind of their etiquettes. Or else if you look at it from a non-Qur'an, a non-recitation perspective, it makes no difference. I mean, if you're looking at it just from pure meaning, it makes no difference. right?
So what did the recommended stop, don't stop, should stop,
Mm-hmm.
could go or stop? When did all that come about? Why?
I don't know when it came about, but why it came about is just when you recite Quran, how do you best show the flow of the meaning? Because I mean, if you stop at certain places, it's a bizarre stop. Like any speaker, if they're speaking and they stop at a wrong place, it just sounds weird.
So was it kind of put in for people that weren't necessarily understand Arabic?
No, it's just recommendations by scholars of recitation in terms of where they recommend stopping versus where they don't recommend stopping. If you were to remove all of those things, it makes no difference. What we care about most is the meaning in order, because the order of the words are intentional. And the word choices are intentional by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You play around with that, there's a problem. But in terms of the stopping and where the verses end, it makes no difference. Okay. Yeah, so the Prophet ﷺ, he himself is not the one who classified Mecca and Medini. Rather, this came with the companions as part of tafsir and preserving the Quran. So Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala says, I swear by Allah, besides whom there is no God, there is no surah in the Quran except that I know where it was revealed. Ali radiallahu ta'ala said, by Allah, I know about every verse, whether it was revealed at night or during the day, in the plains or over the mountains. So in the longer books of Ulum al-Quran, you will find that scholars actually categorized verses and surahs as winter and summer surahs. Was it revealed in the winter or the summer? Night or day? While traveling or while in residency? All these different ways. But the one we care about most is Mekki and Madani, because it has to do with understanding the circumstances. Traveling, not traveling, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. But what are the circumstances? What were the realities on the ground, especially once you get into the Madani surahs? The Mecca was pretty much one circumstance throughout the 13 years. Whereas Medina, I mean, each year or each 2 years presented a different challenge, right? And we'll get to that once we finish the Mecca part. So it's really important. It's very helpful, I should say, to know that. All right. So how is it known if a verse or surah is Mecca or Madani? There are two primary ways in which the scholars of the Quran determine if the surah or verse was Mecca or Madani. The first is through narrations from the companions, meaning a companion will mention the time and place of a specific verse or surah. Sometimes they may mention some other information that indicates it was revealed before or after migration. It is important to know that there is not a narration for every single verse of the Quran that describes it, if it is Mecca or Madani. So, you might have a companion say, while we were with the Prophet in Tabuk, these verses were revealed. Well, we know Tabuk was happening in the Medinan era, more specifically towards the end of the life of the Prophet ﷺ. You'll have maybe another hadith where it's, let's say rather made up example here. Let's say Sa'd ibn, Mu'adh ibn, the leader of Aus. What's his name?
Jabal?
Hmm?
Mu'adh ibn Jabal?
No. Mu'adh al-Jabal is a Meccan companion. Mu'adh ibn, I can't believe I'm forgetting his other name. Anyway, he's a Medinan. He's a native Medinan. If he says this verse, I remember when this verse was revealed. He wasn't a Mecca, so we know automatically it's what? A Madani, right? The second is through educated reasoning based off external factors, based on the subject matter, style, and theme of the verse or surah. A scholar will conclude if it is Mecca or Madani. For example, verses that are addressing the polytheists of Mecca are most likely Mecca. Verses that talk about the battle of Badr or hypocrites are most likely Madani. So there are certain features or characteristics, as we'll get to here, themes, topics that were predominantly part of one era and not the other. All right, and we'll get to that here in a minute. Now, there are certain surahs where scholars differed. The scholars differed. They don't know, is this Mecca or Madani? Why? Because the theme might be Mecca, but you have maybe a hadith or companion saying it's Madani. You have maybe the possibility of certain verses or surahs being revealed multiple times, more than once. It said that Surah Al-Fatiha was revealed twice. Once in Mecca, once in Medina. Another example, Surah Al-Ra'd, it's not known whether it is a Mecca or a Madani surah. The themes are Mecca, but there are other reasons scholars think that it could have been Madani and whatnot. Okay, so yes.
Did you say more being revealed more than once?
I'm sorry?
Being revealed more than once, could you expound on that?
Yeah, so the surahs, for example, Surah Al-Fatiha could have been revealed. Jibreel could have came to the Prophet and said, this is Surah Al-Fatiha. And another time said, this is Surah Al-Fatiha. Same thing. Maybe. Hypothetically, like we don't have a particular example, but there are some kind of individuals who made arguments like that. Okay, so before we go into the themes and whatnot, let's go ahead and take a quick break. Inshallah, we'll convene after, say, 10 minutes.
So the fact that so you consider it both?
It could.
Could be.
It could be.
No, I think it's, yeah, I think there's an issue. For coffee. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. It's. Did you pass? Well, basically, that's what, right?
Not yet, but we can, I was gonna request it, but we can. Probably get it.
Yeah. Actually, it's a bigger.
All right. So there are certain themes and characteristics of each era that can help us identify when the surah is being revealed or these verses. So we'll do the Makki before the Madani. So we have the themes. So the Makki themes, and they are written here. And so you don't need to write down what I'm writing. When we talk about themes, we're talking about the content. What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about? When we talk about the characteristics, we're talking more about the tools of rhetoric, tools of language, maybe certain words, or certain references. So the themes of Mecca include the fundamental aspects of the faith, what we call the pillars of Iman. The fundamentals of belief. Tawheed, belief in the afterlife, prophethood, etc. You find that this is dominating the content of the Meccan era. Because remember, why is that the case? Is it because as soon as we have a government, these stuff don't matter? No, but building that faith is more effective and more needed when you're in certain circumstances, all right? Now, sometimes the community as a whole will be in those circumstances. Sometimes they won't be. But if the community isn't, doesn't mean that you as an individual won't go through certain scenarios that make you feel like you are in the Meccan era, all right? So there will always be times and opportunities for you to build your Iman, where you need to grow the foundations of your belief and your attachment to the religion, right? The second is morality and values. So while there isn't a lot of fiqh rulings in the Meccan era, the more important, or I should say the more critical topics of morality and value begin in the Meccan era, such as don't kill, don't steal, don't take advantage of an orphan, don't oppress, don't have relationships outside of marriage. So you'll find that the Quran is constant, the Meccan surahs are constant, are bringing these up. For example, Surah Al-Isra, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. You have an entire series of verses that talk about ethics and character. Surah Al-An'am, same thing. قُلْ تَعَالَوْا أَتْلُوا مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ أَلَّا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا, etc. You have 3 verses which are, termed the 10 commandments of the Quran, so to speak, and in other places as well. And the third are the stories of past generations. Prophets and non-prophets as well. Now, the idea of stories, as I gave you all the task, to go back to a story. Right? What does it do for you? It's not about telling us that these people existed. Right? This isn't academia where you go to, some university and you decide to, research the ancient Mayas, right? The ancient Mayans and whatnot. And then all you need to do is present certain factual information that may not have any ramifications or implications in current time. Well, I just discovered that, societies were larger than previously thought. If you do that and you prove it, you got yourself a PhD. Great. What does it mean for you? How does it make you a better person? How does that improve society? It doesn't. You just added a book to a library. That's it. Okay. This isn't what's going on with these stories. These stories are there because there's some amount of overlap between you and those stories, either now or in a different time, to build in you, to impact within you certain characteristics, behaviors, decisions, etc., that will make you better. That's the point of stories. And when it comes to the characteristics of the Makki surahs, you have 6 here. One is the use of the word kalla. If you see the word kalla in a surah, it is a Makki surah. Someone give me an example. Kalla bal tuhibbun al-ajila in Surah Al-Qiyamah. This is now a Meccan surah. Another example. In Surah Al-Mutaffifin, right? Meccan surah. Third one. My Surah Al-Fajr, a Meccan surah. Why? There's no reason as to why kalla is only there. The scholar just noticed that the word kalla seems to only be used in Meccan surahs. So they use it as a characteristic. You can identify Meccan surah by the presence of this word. The second characteristic, yeah.
What does that mean again?
Kalla, it's like a word of rejection. It's not the way you think it is. You've assumed something. I say kalla. No, it's not that way. Second characteristic are what's called the huruf al-muqatta'a, the broken letters at the beginning of surahs. Alif lam mim ra, alif lam mim sad, alif lam ra, ha mim, tasin, etc. If the surah begins with these, it is a Makki surah, with the exception of Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Ali Imran. Right? Those are the only 2 surahs that are Madani, but start with the broken letters. Now, what are those broken letters? The scholars differed, but the strongest opinion is that the function of those broken letters aren't to hide a certain meaning. There's no secret meaning behind it. It's not abbreviations for something else. They are simply to indicate that this is the Arabic language. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the reader that He is using a human language and challenges you to bring something better. To put it kind of in a little more street terminology, Allah is beating us at our own ball game. He's challenging us to our own game. The Arabs would go and say, we're the best in language. Nobody's better in language. We have the purest tongue, etc., etc. Okay, here you go. Bring something better. Right? It's simply indicating that this is in a language that is understandable, accessible, engageable, challengeable by the human being. And that's it.
The question is about the Quran when it comes to being in the preserved tablet. It's not written in Arabic in the preserved tablet.
I don't know.
Okay, well, is it so we don't know if it's written, or is it revealed in Arabic tongue, but not necessarily written in the tablet, or is it also written?
Everything is written in the tablet, right? Preserved tablet, everything is there. Quran was there. So if you remember, the first phase of revealing the Quran was to take it from the preserved tablet to the lower heaven, where Jibreel would then take it down to earth, to the Prophet. Okay. Now, what language was it in? I think the safe assumption is to say it was in Arabic. I highly doubt the angels were limited by language.
So when Allah says that He revealed it in a clear Arabic tongue, it's not just referring to like revealing the meanings in the Arabic tongue so that we can grasp it or something like this, but that in the actual tablet itself, or the preserved tablet, it's also written by the pen.
No, I mean that's irrelevant to the verse. The verse is saying is that you have the ability to understand this. And there are a few implications to that. One implication is that this idea of tracing certain Arabic words found in the Quran back to other more ancient languages like Syrianic. So for example, Arabic, Aramaic, and what's the third one? Assyrian. These three languages they're a group. They go back to a mother tongue. So some people think that they could take an Arabic language, go back to the mother tongue, and then find a meaning from the mother tongue and say, this is what it actually means. No. It's in the Arabic language, meaning we understand it based on the way the Arabs use that word, not based on where it comes from. The etymology is irrelevant if it's coming from a different language. Right? And who cares if it's a word borrowed from a different language? How did the Arabs understand it? That's what we care about. That's what the Quran is saying. So the third characteristic is the presence of a verse of prostration. You know the prostration verses? We're all familiar with it, right? That symbol that looks like a prayer rug at the end of a verse, that is a ayah of prostration. Every surah that has an ayah of prostration is a Makki surah.
For the broken letters of the Surah Baqarah, and which one?
Ali Imran. The fourth characteristic is that the story of Adam and Shaitan, Iblis, the origins of humanity, etc. Any surah that talks about that is a Meccan surah with the exception of Surah Al-Baqarah. The next characteristic, number 5, brevity and rhythm. Meccan surahs, in general, are shorter. They are more arrhythmic. Is that the right word? It has more rhythm, right? And the ayahs tend to be shorter in comparison to Madani surahs. Now, is every Meccan surah shorter than every Madani surah? No. Surah Al-A'raf is 27 pages, one of the longest surahs, and it's a Makki surah, right? Surah Al-An'am, 23 pages, I believe, a Makki surah, one of the longer surahs. But in general, you'll find that Meccan surahs, in general, are shorter than Madani surahs, have more rhythm than Madani surahs, and the verses are shorter. The length of verses are shorter. Yes.
So the order that it was revealed as far as like temporally or the time frame is different than the order that the angel dictated later, the prophet put it in, right?
Yeah.
And so is it possible to have like in, let's say, Baqarah, instances where there's actually
A Meccan,
yeah.
yes. So when we say that the surah is Mecki or Madani, it doesn't necessarily mean every single verse was revealed while the Prophet was in Mecca or Medina. Right? You can have verses with Al-Baqarah that were actually revealed before the immigration. But in general, the surah is Madani.
Is it based on it having more content from Medina, or is it based on where it finished? Like if a surah like has ayahs from the Mecca period and Medina period, is it considered Madani because more of it is in Medina, or is it considered Madani because it finished out of Medina?
I don't think there's an example of that, but let's just say there is. It would be what are the characteristics of the surah? What are the features, the themes? What is it more revolving around? Right. So, for example, you'll have verses there's a lot of verses, a few examples of verses that are very comparable between Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-A'raf, especially when talking about the children of Israel. That both of these surahs present a lot of the same stories, right? However, when you look at how they are presented, even though there's a lot of literally word for word similarities, there are slight variations that when you begin to put in context of Mecca and Madani, brings up some very interesting differences. Let me show you. So if I were to take you have this verse right here. Right? So these two highlighted verses. Can you see them okay? So where am I fall? Right? Give me a difference.
The first two, I guess the first word is the same. The second word is similar, but then after that it changes.
What?
I don't know. Like similarity of what?
What are the different words? Literally the word differences. Okay, one has ragad, one doesn't.
One of them was, I don't know if this is one of them has a wow.
You see right there, that wall makes a huge difference. Huge difference when you put it in context. So let's just stick with that. You have إِذْ قُلْنَا, you have وَإِذْ قِيلَ, etc. Just this wall difference at the end of each verse. وَسَنَزِيدُ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, سَنَزِيدُ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Okay? This right here, Surah Al-A'raf is Makki. Surah Al-Baqarah is Madani. Once I start giving you the landscape of Medina, who's in Medina? The Jews are in Medina, right? In Mecca, there ain't no Jews. So here in Surah Al-A'raf, Allah's talking directly to who and only to who? The Muslims. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah's talking to the Muslims. He's also talking to the Jews. Okay? So what does this waw do? Waw al-atf in the Arabic language has certain connotations. There are certain things it doesn't connote, certain things it does connote. Waw al-atf connotes a difference between what is after and what is before. So if I say, Ja'a rajulun wa rajulun, a man came and a man. The waw is indicating the first man and second man are different. Okay? So, in Surah Al-Baqarah, when it says, وَسَنَزِيدُ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, right? Before that, before the last two words, it's talking about who? The verse is talking about the Jews and their behaviors with their prophets, right? And in Baqarah, Allah is talking to the Jews as well in real time. He's telling them this. And then when he says, wa sanazidul muhsinin, now if you're a Jew and you're being told this, and then Allah says, wa sanazidul muhsinin, and we're going to increase the people of ihsan. That and right there is pretty much telling you you're not of them. As a Jew, it's not you. The muhsineen, we're talking about somebody else. You see what I mean here? Whereas here, Allah's not talking to the Jews, he's talking to the Muslims. So when he says, Sanazid al-Muhsineen, he's talking to them. We're going to increase you because you're people of ihsan. See that? Does that make sense? See a little confusion here. Does everybody understand the difference here? I'm going to make sure everybody got it. One more time. Okay. Waw al-atf. You're all familiar with waw al-atf, right? There are certain meanings it connotes, right? One is at-taghyir. What is before is not the same as what is after. There's a differentiation. Okay? Let me give you an example in Surah An-Nahl. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تَتَّخِذُونَ مِنْهُ سَكَرًا وَرِزْقًا حَسَنًا. Talking about honey. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you have these bees, they make honey for you, and from that honey you make intoxicants, sakaran, and you make money off of it. You see this wall right here? Rizqan hasana. You make good money from it. You make pure money from it, excellent money from it. This excellence right here, because there's waw al-atf, is only describing the rizq part. It's not describing the sakar, the intoxicant part. So somebody who really understands the Arabic language understands that, wait a minute, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pretty much saying intoxicants are not good. Because they're waw al-atf. You got what I mean? Okay, so when you have here, in Mecca, this right here, Surah Al-A'raf, is a Meccan surah. It means the audience is only the believers. So when Allah doesn't put a waw at the end, He says, Sanazid al-Muhsineen. It's pretty much saying the one I am talking to in this verse, the believers, I'm going to increase you. When Allah is talking about what is qila lahum, it was told to them. Look at even the language. I'm talking to you. Yeah, I once said to so-and-so, right? And I'm going to increase you all. Because you're the ones being spoken to. Whereas in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا, I said to them, right? I'm talking to you, Jews. I'm talking to you. Remember when you all did this? Yeah? Okay, well, guess what? I'm going to increase the people of Ihsan. That waw is pretty much telling them, the people I'm talking to right now are not the people who I'm going to increase. You got it? All that comes from what? A waw. And also putting it in context. Had the ones being spoken to in both cases be the same, you wouldn't get that. All right? Took you a little bit, I think the year 3 stuff. Okay, so how do we get here? What were we talking about? How do we get that particular point? There you go. So you might ask the question, okay, if this verse was revealed in Mecca, why would Jibreel tell the Prophet to put it in Medina, in a Madani surah? This is why. You had these discrepancies, right? So for the companions, because they were receiving the Quran in real time, and they completely understood the circumstances going on, right? Let me give you an example of this. If you were to read a random article, you go to Muslim Matters and you read the article, and the article talks about how the Quran determines that there are 2 genders. There's male and female. Okay? You know why they're writing this, right? You understand why. 500 years later, when all this transgender stuff is gone, and somebody were to, dig up this article in this archive and see a Muslim talking about, hey, Allah says there are 2 genders, they'd be sitting there thinking, what on earth? Like, why is that even an article? What a waste of time. Because they're completely out of context, right? So the companions, they had the context. They didn't need chronology. They didn't need a certain order. For us, because we're coming later, the order in which it is put allows us to gauge the meanings, the deeper meanings that the companions were getting as a result of experiencing it in real time, we can get those benefits because of the order. Does that make sense? So we get additional information because of the way it's ordered in a non-chronologically revealed way, right? Because there's strategy and there's insight in terms of the structure, in terms of how it's ordered. Okay. And then the last characteristic of the Meccan era is the use of oaths, right? Oaths come in the form of waw, waw, ta, and ba. Wallahi, tallahi, billahi. If a surah has an oath in it, it is a Meccan surah. For example, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا. And you know this is a waw of an oath when what is after is majroor. Okay? And it doesn't necessarily have to be Allah, it could be something else, like وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا. These are oaths. So if a surah has oaths in it, it is a Meccan surah. Any questions about the Meccan era? That all good? People online, you good?
You mentioned something about the dots. When did the dots make wrong?
In the Umayyad period. So you're talking about a few decades after, because after the Prophet.
Do we have any idea how much of the Quran was revealed by the time that Hijrah took place?
Exactly, no, but you could tell from the amount of Madani surahs, Meccan and Madani surahs, it's about half, maybe a little bit more than half. Good. All right, now the Madani, Medina. Let's go over the landscape here. Medina is 440 kilometers north of Mecca. We're about 300 miles north of Mecca. No, when I was growing up, when you would hear the word, the city Compton and Inglewood, right? And these rappers boasting about I'm from Compton and whatnot, straight out of Compton. I mean, that's a place you don't go. That's where the gangs are, and the worst of the gangs are. That's where the worst of the violence are. I don't know if it's still the same way or all that's just exaggerations, but under that pretense, Medina was originally called Yathrib, which is in the Quran, Ya Ahla Yathrib. And Yathrib essentially means destruction, the place of destruction, the place of chaos, the place of problems. And it was called that because it was the Compton of Arabia. It was a Compton of Arabia. This is where the gangs were. This is where the blood was. It was the slums of Arabia. This is the worst place you could be in Arabia. All right. And Medina, let's look at the terrain. Medina is farmland. Lots of palm trees. So the Prophet ﷺ, while in Mecca, saw a dream that he settled in a place with a lot of palm trees. Now there are 3 places with a lot of palm trees in Arabia. That is Medina, Khaybar, and Fadak. Right, these 3 places. So it's pretty limited. So the Prophet said, I think it's going to be Yathrib. Right. So it was a farmland, lots of palm trees. So the who would become the Ansar were farmers. Right. And being farmland, the role of the female is different than the role of a female in urban land. Okay? I want you all to really take this point, because we have a bunch of people saying we need to go back to the traditional family structure. All right. And as Muslims, when you hear traditional, you get all excited because traditional means sunnah. But when you really look at history, you need to look at the time of the Prophet. There was no clear traditional family structure. The Meccan women had different personalities than the Medinan women. And that's not because of parenting style, it's because of the landscape. It is very natural in Muslim and non-Muslim places. If you are in urban land, urban society, women tend to be stay-at-home moms who care about the children's education and all of this stuff. Right? In rural lands, what do women do? Where do they work? They're on the field plowing and doing the work, right? Who else is doing the same exact work? The man, right? There are a bunch of these family vloggers, and they're coming out of different parts of the world from the farm life. I love watching this stuff, right? And what you find is a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, working together, literally doing the same exact thing. Is that not traditional? Right. Now, don't exaggerate what I'm saying. I'm not saying just do whatever you want and there's no better way of doing things. What I'm saying is this idea that there's just only one way a Muslim family looks like is wrong. And a time came where, by merit of the Medinan women, because they were on the fields with their husbands, they were comfortable talking back to their husbands and arguing with them. The Meccan women weren't. So when the Meccan women started to interact with the Medinan women, they started to talk back to their husbands, right? And take from those characteristics. The Prophet didn't say, this is how it's going to be. He just let them be, right? Figure it out. Anyway, so farmland, a lot of palm trees. Medina is like this. It's kind of in a, I want to call that valley, a little bit of a enclaved part of the earth. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Ahzab and says, إِذْ جَاءُوكُم مِّن فَوْقِكُمْ وَمِنْ أَسْفَلَ مِنْكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they came to you from above you and from under you. It's not east and west, north and south. It's saying the Meccans came from above, here in Medina, and the Jews were coming from under, like the terrain, another part of Medina, it's kind of goes down, right? So they're coming from both sides. That's what's meant by it. So you have this environment. Now, because of the landscape, it's more humid in Medina, a little bit warmer. The bacteria is different. So that's why they all got sick. The Meccans all got sick when they first went there. It was very difficult for them. Mecca is higher standard of living. Medina is lower standard of living when they immigrated, at least. So that's the terrain. Now, when it comes to the social situation, we'll leave that for next week. Inshallah, not next week. Next week we're off for Thanksgiving break, right?
Yeah.
Next week?
Yes.
All right. So whenever we come back, inshallah, we'll look at the social situation. When is the final? Is it before winter break? Or
January.
January. Durus. Yeah. So my aim is that this will take the entirety of the first semester, or the vast majority of it. And then second semester, we'll go over volumes 1 and 2 of Durus. What do you want? That? What's that?
Bro, he is very separated. That's like, bro, you can do one blow, you can do one other blow. It's like crazy. You're better off. Basically, you would have
In itself, is not like there will be.
Now. I have because they UCLA, they don't want to start. USC has one. I think the only ones that have additional access. Yeah, maybe you guys take time to write it. Of course, this is not a fellowship for public sector law. Now it's due on the 15th, I think. It's all the same, but now that's one of the. I think they read on when you go to South Africa and you go to the application, there's 3 stars of rock. You go to also, and why does it have yeah, you like so if you go to LFAC, go to letters, send it to you're going to talk to your people before you send it. There 1, 2, 3, we don't get to first. You want to get one first. All right, so we're going to do everything else back and not to be honest. Second,
Yeah.
you have to put your or so if you want to put you figure the law so you put this class or you get it off. I'm gonna take 3. You want to know all of it because when it was not better than well because it's all everybody's any other questions about it? Okay, do 13. Yeah. Probably needs one for your Alex.
Yeah.
Back and forth. That's me. I'm a little kid. That's a lot. It's kind of. thinking a lot of things, but like. I think the next one. Okay. Like what? But they always have the Wednesdays, the Tuesdays, the fact. For Thursdays is. Thursday.
Well.
Friday. Yeah, I'll be careful. When you're Friday. And Sunday. We sound more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What's on? You know that it's not.
I think it's season.
Oh.
Seven. What is it? Seven. The AC, the setting for the AC, 71. I see. So what's the temperature? That can go up. Turn temperature 7. Maybe 72. No, but I thought it was, I was like, well, no, the city's smart, though, like you let him outside and then to get back in, one like start hitting his on the door to make noise. We can find what. I think.
Yes. Both use iPads, right? Yes, both use iPads.
I forgot about.
What?
Some use my.
Do you guys have your messages synced to your iPad? They do? Why?
Cause I message a lot, so it's way easier to just type out rather than.
When you do that, does it take the memory on your? Takes up memory on your.
iCloud.
Huh?
It's on my.
But you do it because you. It's just annoying that I don't like it.
I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to type something.
Oh, okay. How do you turn it off?
I'll turn it off.
Do you from my phone? From my phone or from?
On your iPad.
I think I turned it off just one bit. I just okay.
Blind messages.
I get it. Just that's it. I just toggled that off yesterday.
Oh, you already turned it?
I don't. That's what I did last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all it is. And what about? What about the
Same
photos?
thing with calls. You know what the photos are on your iPad?
Yeah.
Yeah, go to photos. Oh, go to iCloud.
Go to iCloud?
Yeah, go on all the way to the top. Then type in iCloud. Yeah. And then the photos is it off?
Yeah, it's off.
So
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so we got to-
I'll bring it up. Got like 10 of these. Make the view driver on. Rather than 5 or 4.
I'm great with free fire. Yeah. I don't think it's with the off you got me.
Please watch your language in class.
Oh,
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه من استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. Beginning of the year, did you guys get a book like the Arabic book that we're using, but it said Arabic reader?
Wait,
Yes. No.
it looks like this, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's,
two of the, well, it looks like that, but just white, yeah.
yeah.
I think I have them.
Always heard of it. Have it. Is it just bullet?
No, it's just that he put all the books into his backpack at day one. Yeah, he touched the backpack since day one. That looks like this. A blue textbook?
Yeah.
Small.
Yeah, small.
No. My God.
That look like this, guys?
No, I don't think so.
No?
The other one I was referring to is in all Arabic, I think. Oh.
Yeah. Those there's two books I think that say Durus min Quran Kareem. That's for Sheikh Tariq's class. We didn't get this, right?
No.
Obviously, you guys have the book that we're currently doing. You have the second book of it because that's what Sheikh Aisha is using. You guys have that, right?
Yeah.
What other book are you talking about then?
The I guess Sheikh Tariq's book.
You said a small
It looks
blue
like
book.
this, but
You
it's
said
a small blue one. Yeah, it's like light blue and darker blue, and it's like.
Is that puzzles? Like it's like this? No, you guys have a different topic. You guys have a different topic. Okay. But you guys didn't get this.
No.
All right, Bismillah. Open up. We did 14, correct? Yes, no. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah. I asked you guys to do something for 15, right? Okay. I'll read this 11.4, page 137. It's a review of almost the same exact section that showed up, but abnormal sentence structure, the standard order for a typical jumla ismiya is the mubtada followed by the khabar, followed by the muta'alliq bil khabar. It is possible for this order to be shifted for rhetorical purposes. Shifting the order can produce several different meanings. The meaning produced by the shift in order is determined by the type of shift and the context.
In terms of labeling, when something appears before it is expected to, it is labeled as muqaddam, which means brought forward. When something appears after it is expected, it is labeled as mu'akhar, which means delayed. If there's something that is muqaddam in a sentence, there will necessarily be something mu'akhar. There are two common abnormal patterns. They are muta'alliq bil khabar followed by the mubtada, and al-mubtada and muta'alliq bil khabar followed by the khabar, right? You had the examples that were given, wa ilallahi al-masir, and to Allah alone is the final place of return, and wa ilayhi nushur, and to him alone is the resurrection. Then you were given the example of fi qulubihim marad, but over here you had to shift marad. You're forced to shift it because marad is nakira, and whenever the mubtada is nakira and your khabar or your muta'alliq bil khabar, you have that, you're going to bring it forward. Also, anna lahum ajran hasana. Anna lahum ajr. It says ajran hasana. Should be ajran with the sukun on the jeen. Anna lahum ajran hasana. Right? Ajran is the ism of anna. Right? Mansub, and it is mu'akhar, and hasanan is the sifa. Right? And the reason that it got delayed was because it's nakira. Okay. Okay, let's go to drill 15. Let's go to drill 15. It says underline the mubtada and once the khabar and twice and muta'alliq bil khabar. 3 times note any components that are muqaddamun or mu'akharun. Rama, go ahead. Read number 1. فيه آيات بينات. Go ahead. فيه is متعلق بالخبر مقدم. آيات is the مبتدأ مؤخر. Yeah, and بينات is the صفة مرفوع. And فيه آيات بينات means in it are clear signs. Amira, number 2. Yes, sorry.
Would you translate it in it first, or would you translate it the other way?
You could go both ways. You could say there are clear signs in it, or you could say in it there are clear signs.
In the times where the mubtada could have went first, but the muta'alliqun was chosen to go first. In those instances, you would translate it just like this, rather than saying where it's like ma'rifa.
Yes.
Those instances you would emphasize and translate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mira.
Is the
It's not marfu'.
Sorry. في غفلة is the متعلق بالخبر الموجود.
But now you open that door to say hum is the mubtada'un.
في محل رفع.
There we go.
And في is the متعلق بالخبر المقدم. And is the خبر المقدم.
Good. She said hum is the مبتدأ في محل رفع في محل رفع because it's a attached pronoun, it's a detached pronoun. في غفلة she said متعلق بالخبر مقدم, and معرضون she said it's the خبر مقدم مؤخر. And هم في غفلة معرضون means
they are in like heedlessness.
معرض vocab word.
Loss.
Baglun. Huh? Come on, it was fun. It was fun watching her struggle.
You really gotta get to see it. See this when you do, you just enjoy it.
Huh?
You really.
Yeah, exactly. It rarely happens. I mean, it's like I was gonna drink my protein shake, some water, some gummies in my pocket. I was gonna drag this one out, Siraj. She was gonna go lost, loser, all of them. I was gonna make her go down the list. Oh, Siraj. Yeah, it's a problem. We got people with good hearts in here. We like you. That's the problem. We have people with good hearts. هم في غفلة معرضون. They are in heedlessness, turning away. They are in heedlessness, turning away. Noor, 3.
في السماء اسم متعلق بالخبر مقدم رزق is the مبتدأ مؤخرا كن is the مضاف إليه في محل الجر.
Good. She said في السماء is the متعلق بالخبر مقدم. رزق is the مبتدأ مؤخر, and كم, which is an attached pronoun, she said it is the مضاف إليه في محل جر. Good. And في السماء رزقكم means in the skies is your provision. Number 4, يا طيب.
فهم فيه سواء. فهم is the.
Just whom?
Yeah, whom is the متعلق بالخبر?
It's a pronoun by itself.
Or it's just a pronoun. So it's not like a مضاف إليه for fa. It's not fa.
No, the fa is a حرف عطف over here.
Okay, so it's the مبتدأ. The فيه is the متعلق بالخبر مقدم, and سواء is the مبتدأ مؤخر مرفوع.
So once again, he said whom is the مبتدأ, right? Obviously it's في محل رفع. فيه is the متعلق بالخبر مقدم, and سواء is the خبر مؤخر. فهم فيه سواء, they are in it equal, or they are equal in it. Number 5, عيسى.
وعلى الوارث مثل ذلك. على الوارث متعلق بالخبر مقدم. مثل مبتدأ مؤخر. ذلك مضاف إليه.
Yeah. So he said وعلى الوارث, على الوارث is the متعلق بالخبر مقدم. مثل is the مبتدأ مؤخر, and ذلك over here is acting as a مضاف إليه. Anyone know what the وارث is? Yeah, what does the word وارث mean?
One who inherits?
Yeah, the one who inherits.
Is that also one of the names below?
الوارث, according to some it is. وعلى الوارث مثل ذلك shows up in, what surah does it show up in? يا عبد الرحمن. Huh? Good, inshallah. وعلى الوارث مثل ذلك, right? How do you translate this? Yeah, وعلى الوارث, like the warith over here is the father, right? And upon the heir is a similar duty, or is something similar. Once again, sometimes these verses are taken out of not out of context, but like out of a longer verse, so you can't get the entire meaning. Grant 6.
وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُمْ لَرَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. Allah is the mubtada'un.
No. First of all, don't call it Allah. Call it Lafzul Jalala.
Okay. Well, it's acting as it's acting in this exercise.
Forget the exercise. Just
Okay.
give it its proper name.
It's the ismu inna. It's well.
Yes.
How do you say it? It's
Lafzul Jalala. Lafzul Jalala is the ism of inna mansubun.
Ism of inna. Bikum is muta'alliqun bil khabar muqaddamun. Tara'ukum is the khabarun mu'akharun. Rahimun is khabarun mu'akharun. So I got two different khabaruns for my answer.
So yeah, so inna Allah bikum lara'ufun, inna Allah bikum lara'ufun rahimun, right? You have two khabars over here, right? So he said Allah, lafzul jalala, is the ism of inna, bikum is the muta'alliq bil khabar muqaddam, and ra'ufun is a khabar of inna, the first khabar of inna, and rahimun is a second khabar of inna. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُمْ لَرَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ, and indeed Allah is, you could say, kind and merciful to all of you. Number 7, Siraj.
الحمد is مبتدأ لله متعلق بالأمر مؤخر طبعا and ربي is the خبر مؤخر.
Say it again. What did you say about Rabbi?
خبر مؤخر and العالمين is مضاف.
No. So this one, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdu is going to be our mubtada. Lillahi is our muta'alliq bil khabar. Muta'alliq bil khabar. Full stop, right? Rabbil Alameen, as for Rabbil Alameen, we can look at Rabbil Alameen as a sifa, right, of Allah, or we can look at as a concept that you haven't taken, but I've alluded to before, a badal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But as for this part of the exercise, Alhamdu is the mubtada, and Lillahi is the muta'alliq bil khabar. It's good enough. Okay? Al-Alameen, that last word would be the mudafun ilay to the word Rabbi. All praise and thanks is for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Yes.
I think on Thursday you were saying that if it seems like grammatically like Allah is being, or something related to Allah is being owned by something, like in this instance, Rabb is mudafun, Alameen is mudafun ilay. Would you have to describe the mudafun like you described Allah earlier? You were saying that it's not the mubtada'un, it's. Would you say the same thing in this instance with Rabb?
No. No. You would just simply say like Rabb is, because then it's easy, especially when you're dealing with like an idaf construction. Say Rabb is mudaf, majroor, right? But Allah is a very, very specific name.
But it's okay to say Lillahi is the as.
Yeah, because it's indicated. Yeah, you can say not Lillahi. Lillahi is a muta'alliq bil khabar.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a harf added, so it's very clear that you're saying the phrase Lillah. There's no ambiguity. But when you say Allah is the mubtada, or Allah is marfu, or Allah is majroor, there's ambiguity in the statement. As opposed to when you say Lillah, it's clear that you're referring to the statement. Number 8, Ya Abdurrahman.
So Inni is going to be the mubtada.
All of it? Inni is composed of what? Huh?
Yeah, and at the end, is that what
Yeah, right. So inni is composed of inna plus the ya al-mutakallim. So inna is the harf al-nasb. The ya al-mutakallim is the ism of inna. Go ahead, continue.
So the ya is ism of inna.
Yes.
Okay, and then lakum is, or
yes. Lakum is a muta'alliq bil khabar muqaddam. Minhu is another muta'alliq bil khabar muqaddam. Nadhirun is
is one's mawsul.
Tayyib, Nadhir is the Khabarun Mu'akharun, and Mubinun is Sifatun of Nadhirun, right? So once again, the Ya is the ism of inna, Lakum and Minhu are both muta'alliq bil khabars that are muqaddam. Nadhirun is the khabar mu'akhar, and Mubinun is a sifa. Inni lakum minhu nadhirun mubin, that indeed I am to all of you from him a clear warner. Indeed I am to all of you from him a clear warner. Muhammad Martini, number 9. Inna is not the mubtada, guys, stop it. Go ahead, Isa.
Inna is a harf nasb.
Inna is the harf nasb.
Lafzul jalala is the ism inna. Alimun is the khabar.
Good. Inna is the harf nasb. Allah is the ism of inna mansub. Alimun is the khabarun marfu'un. Inna Allah alimun. Indeed, Allah is all knowing, all aware. Number 10. Ya Noor.
Inna is harfunas. Lafzul jalala is ismu inna. Ala kulli muta'alliqun bil khabar muqaddam.
على كل شيء.
على كل شيء.
Yeah.
متعلق بالخبر مقدم قدير خبر مؤخر.
Yeah. إن الله على كل شيء قدير. إن حرف نصب. الله, the word Allah, لفظ الجلالة, اسمه إن منصوب. على كل شيء, that entire phrase. على is a حرف جر. كل is a مجرور. شيء is a مضاف إليه. is the متعلق بالخبر مقدم, and قدير is the خبر مؤخر. إن الله على كل شيء قدير. Indeed, Allah is capable over every single thing. Amira, 11.
علم is the مبتدأ and عند ربي
A hat, just do the hat.
is the مضاف إليه
Mhm.
and then عند ربي is the متعلق بالخبر
Mhm.
and في كتاب is
Yeah. علم is the مبتدأ, the ha is acting as a مضاف إليه. عند ربي is a متعلق بالخبر, and في كتاب is another متعلق بالخبر. The knowledge of it is with my Lord in a book. The knowledge of it, علمها, or its knowledge, عند ربي is with my Lord. Technically, you have a full sentence right there, right? في كتاب is additional, so in a book. Number 12. Muhammad Fardeen, أم له البنات ولكم البنون. Don't worry about simply just look at له البنات.
له البنات مبتدأ.
له, you can't have a jar and majroor. You can't have a jar and a majroor as a mubtada. Try again, Muhammad.
Sorry, Sheikh, I couldn't hear you.
Joseph.
له جار مجرور.
Grant, go.
بنات.
Okay, but it's jar majrur. But what other label does jar majrur get, Joseph?
مقدم.
Grant, go.
أو متعلق بالخبر مقدم.
People tend to answer faster when I call on other people. It's just a. Okay, go ahead. متعلق بالخبر. What? What did you say after that?
مقدم.
مقدم. Okay, البنات.
Yes. Can't be خبر.
I mean, you start with the متعلق بالخبر. You're already on abnormal sentence structure. So
Yes.
One thing left.
One thing, I mean, are you saying it's a mubtada'un?
Yes.
Interesting. So banatu mubtada'un mu'akkarun.
Yeah, so له متعلق بالخبر مقدم and البنات مبتدأ مؤخر, and then you would look at لكم البنون kind of the same way, right? لكم as the متعلق بالخبر مقدم and البنون as the مبتدأ مؤخر. أم له البنات ولكم البنون, or does he have daughters and all of you have sons, right? 13. Isa.
لهم دار السلام عند ربهم. لهم is متعلق بخبري مقدم. دار is مبتدأ مؤخر. سلامي is the مضاف إليه. عند ربهم is, or I guess عند ربي and ربهم are separate, but they're both
عند ربهم is just like more متعلق بالخبر, right? So لهم دار السلام, that's our sentence. عند ربهم is additional, but لهم متعلق بالخبر مقدم. دار السلام is the مبتدا, or دار is the مبتدا, and السلام is the مضاف إليه. And عند ربهم is additional information. لهم دار السلام عند ربهم, that for them is an abode of, or is the abode of peace and protection. عند ربهم, with their Lord, or in the presence of their Lord. متعلق بالخبر مقدم. DJ. 14. Just anna. Okay, the word Allah. Ismu anna. What is shadid? Sa'ad, what is shadid? Khabar of anna. And then al-adab is? What is al-adab? Mudafun ilayh. Anna is harfun nasb. Allah is, the word Allah is ismu anna. Shadidu is khabar. Al-adab is mudafun ilayh. Anna Allah shadidu al-adab. And then Allah is severe in torment, or Allah is severe in punishment. 15, Maryam Khidr. Inna fi dhalika la ayatin lil alamin. Bayan. Inna fi dhalika la ayatin lil alamin.
Inna is harfu nasb, and then fi is ismu inna.
Fi is a harfu jar, can't be ismu inna.
And then dhalika is ismu inna.
Grant, go.
For number 15, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. في ذلك is متعلق بالخبر مقدم.
Good. في ذلك is the متعلق بالخبر of inna and it's مقدم. في ذلك is the متعلق بالخبر of inna and it is مقدم. Go ahead.
I think that the ayat T is the خبر مؤخر and lil al yamina is
Amira, start from the beginning. Inna.
في ذلك is مقدم. The ayatin is the مبتدأ مؤخر.
Not the mubtada.
It's not.
Rename it. It's not called the mubtada.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's but it would still be مؤخر. And then the alamin is
Yeah, jar majroor, another jar majroor. So inna fi dhalika la ayat. That's our sentence. Inna fi dhalika la ayat. And first of all, la ayat, and that lam is not a harfu jar. That lam is not a harfu jar. If it was a harfu jar, it'd be li, right? But this is just a lam of emphasis. As for the word ayatin, what state is it in, Noor? It's in the state of nasbun, right? Why does it have kasra? صرفي. What's ممنوع من الصرف? That's not. No. What's ممنوع من الصرف? What is ممنوع من الصرف? No, tell me what a word in ممنوع, like tell me what you cannot do. Okay, what can and cannot do?
Cannot take.
Cannot take. Fatha. What else can it not do? I think you're studying a different book. Rama. The German with the silent. But remind me what German Mamnu Masar can't do. Yeah, it doesn't take tanween and it doesn't take kasra, right? The reason it has two kasras over here in its mansub is because it's Jam'un Muannath Salim. Jam'un Muannath Salim goes muslimatun and muslimatin, right? There's no muslimatan. So la ayat is mansub and it has kasras because it's a Jam'un Muannath Salim word. So once again, inna harf al-nasb fi dhalika متعلق بالخبر of inna and it's muqaddam. And la ayat is the ism of inna and it is mu'akhar. Lil alamin is a jar and a majroor. In that are signs for all created beings, for all of the worlds. 16, طيب.
Inna is the harfu nasb. Who is the ism of inna fi mahalli no في محل رفع مضاف إليه
في محل. What role is it playing? You said it earlier. What role is it playing?
It is the ism of inna.
Okay, and the ism of inna should be in what state?
مفعول. Oh, nasb. Oh,
نصفا. So في محل.
في محل نصب.
Yeah. Continue.
لا قول is the خبر, and رسول is متعلق بالخبر.
What?
What have I done?
لقول رسول.
Is, oh my God, that is the
I'm controlling the statements right now.
it's the متعلق بال
No, stop
مضاف
it.
إليه.
There we go.
كريم is a صفة
There we go.
of رسول.
So what have I done wrong? I was going to say, what have you done right? Inna is the harf al-nasb. The ha is the ism of inna. Qawlu is the khabar of inna. Qawlu is the khabar of inna. Rasulin is a mudafun ilay. And karimin is a sifa. Indeed, it is the statement of a noble messenger. Indeed, it is a statement of a noble messenger. Rasulin, once again, is the mudafun ilay. And karimin is a sifa. 17, Michelle.
Inna is the harf al-nasb.
What? What was that?
Inna.
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said about it.
Inna is the harf al-nasb.
Inna is the harf al-nasb.
And then the attached alif would be the ism of inna.
The attached what?
I think the attached alif would be the ism of inna.
The attached alif? Just the alif by itself?
Or no, the ilayhi would be the ism of inna.
What? Let's go. Muhammad Fardeen, go ahead.
Yeah, you asked the right person, Sheikh.
What he saying? You said you asked the right person.
Your track record is.
Oh, was he talking about the?
Yeah.
Okay, I want you know, like.
Sheikh,
Sometimes Tayyip says, "I got this." It was like that. Like, I got this. Muhammad Ali, for the first time in 3 months, he's at home right now. He's at home, right? He's not in the car. He's not driving.
I hope all is well at work.
Allah has been inspected. All of them.
Yeah, Inna is sorry, the who is Ismu Inna?
Number 17.
Oh, 17, sorry. Inna is the na is the mubtada one.
What's inna called?
Sorry?
What's inna called? What's inna called?
Oh, Ismu Osman.
Huh?
No. Ismu.
Why are you guys torturing me today? Guys, what's inna called? Harunas. Can everyone get this out of their system? Inna, anna, lakinna, ka'anna. Okay. There's actually more we can say about them. They actually have longer definitions, but like literally, this is the shorter definition, right? Inna has its own definition. Lakinna actually has its own definition. They actually have their own like terminologies for each one. But to simplify it, all of them, inna wa akhawatuha, every single one, ismu inna or ismu anna or ismu lakin, or sorry, all of them, harfun nasb. All of them are harfun nasb. Can we get that? Yes? Okay, go ahead. Inna
is harfu nasbin. The na is ismu inna.
Good. The na is ismu inna. Michelle, I think you said the alif. I simply wanted you to say the na, but then you started moving on to ilayhi, I think. Muhammad, so you said the na is the ism of inna. Good. Obviously, it's fi mahalli nasbin. Continue.
إليه is the متعلق بالخبر مقدم. And then راجعون is the خبر مؤخر.
راجعون is the خبر مؤخر. Good. Inna ilayhi raji'un, indeed to him we will return. Indeed to him we will return. Right? Once again, the na, right, which is inna plus na, that added pronoun, is the ism of inna. Ilayhi is a muta'alliq bil khabar muqaddam, and raji'un is the khabar mu'akhar. 18. Rama. Whom is the what?
No, whom is the
أولئك is the مبتدأ. Let's agree on that. Whom is the ضمير الفصل over here? It's a separating pronoun. Yeah. أولئك is the مبتدأ. Whom over here is the ضمير الفصل. And المفلحون is the khabar. You could actually pair the whole هم المفلحون together as the khabar. Right? وأولئك هم المفلحون, and they are the ones that are successful. Abdurrahman 19.
وإن ربك لهو العزيز الرحيم. إن النبي بحقنا ربك النبي ربك النبي اسمه إلي. And then لهو is لهو العزيز is that متعلق بالخبر.
You just love متعلق بالخبر. And isn't why you love. هو is the ضمير الفصل over here. العزيز is a خبر of inna. الرحيم is the second خبر of inna. وإن ربك لهو العزيز الرحيم. Indeed your Lord is the Almighty and the Merciful. Once again, inna is the harf al-nasb. Abdurrahman paired them together, no issue. But Rabba is the ism of inna. Rabba is the ism of inna. And the kaf is the mudafun ilayh. Right? He paired them together. He called it all the ism inna. It's fine. And we're just kind of, going over it quickly. Lahua over here is that separating pronoun. And al-azizu is the khabar of inna. And al-rahim is the second khabar of inna. So you good?
So lahua is not the muta'alliq bil khabar.
No. Yeah. Guys, remember, متعلق بالخبر. When we talk about متعلق بالخبر, we're looking for a jar and a majroor, حرف jar and a majroor, or we're looking for a special mudaf, right? And it's mudafun ilayh. The lahua that you keep seeing, or the lam that you keep seeing over here, is just a lam of emphasis. Yes.
If it's not like the harf in majroor, because it would have had to have been lahu.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's part of the khabar because the whole khabar is just jumla ismi. Like we went over the different khabars. Because it's a sentence on its own, right?
It can be that. So the thing with the ضمير الفصل is that when you look at it like that, you can always separate. But that's not the role of the huwa over here. We can look at it as like that, say, hey, huwa al-aziz al-rahim. All of that is a jumla ismiya by itself. But it is, right? But over here, the purpose of huwa was that it's simply doing that extra, because you still have that sentence of wa inna rabbaka al-aziz al-rahim. You could still form a sentence without it. 20, Noor.
أولئك مبتدأ لهم متعلق بالخبر مقدم عذاب خبر مؤخر اليوم صفة.
أميرة. That's what she said. Grant.
I think it's like the last one, so I guess.
No, don't say it's like, just start.
Okay, Ulaika is the Mubtada'un. The Adabun is the.
You skip lahum. طيب.
Mubtada'un.
What? لهم is the مبتدأ.
Whom Mubtada'un times 2.
أولئك is the مشار اسم الإشارة في محل رفع مبتدأ.
Good. Okay.
لهم is the متعلق بالخبر. And عذاب is the خبر. أليم is the صفة.
I was on the East Coast this weekend. I should have stayed. Rama. We got it, Abdurrahman?
No, I thought it was the Dhamir Ismail.
Saraj, you got it. Asa, you got it? You got it?
I don't know. Is it أولئك? It's like the اسم الإشارة في محل مبتدأ في محل يقع لهم الإشارة إليك.
Amira's gonna get it right now.
لهم عذاب أليم خبر, and then like within that, لهم is the خبر مقدم and عذاب is the مبتدأ.
And أليم is a صفة, right? لهم عذاب أليم. لهم عذاب أليم is a جملة اسمية. They have a painful punishment, or for them will be a painful punishment, right? So once again, if you break it down, you're going to say أولئك. أولئك is your مبتدأ. It's, you know, as we said, اسم إشارة في محل رفع مبتدأ. Then we pause that إعراب and we look at لهم عذاب أليم. لهم is متعلق بالخبر مقدم. عذاب is مبتدأ مؤخر. أليم is صفة. And then the entire جملة اسمية لهم عذاب أليم, all of that is the خبر of أولئك. Yes.
Because أولئك لهم doesn't make sense by itself. Or like, how would you
I would say that by reading it, when you read لهم عذاب أليم, like you pick up, and at this point, like you guys have knowledge of these words at least, لهم عذاب أليم, you can make out that that has a meaning in itself. It doesn't need anything, right?
How is it different from the previous one? لهو العزيز الرحيم. Like, how do you know when it's the first versus?
So over here, good. First of all, that's, look at the two. First of all, that's lahua and lahum. If we were to compare to, first of all, that would have to be lahu. That's lahua.
Lahua is not a word. Like, it's not a.
Yeah. Lahu.
Huwa is not a
attached pronoun.
Yeah, it's not attached.
Yeah. Right. So that's one way we would know. The other way we would know is that look at 19. If you take out lahua, wa inna rabbaka al-aziz ar-rahim. Does it make sense? Indeed your Lord is al-aziz ar-rahim, the almighty, the all merciful. Makes sense, right? Now do the same with 20. Take out lahum. Wa ulaika, and those adhabun alimun, and those a painful punishment. Doesn't make any sense, right? So that's how you know the difference. Do you see it? Right? How this one can function without lahua. Therefore, we know over here, huwa is a dhamir fasl, just helping us separate, right? But over here, 20, lahum is needed, right? You don't have a sentence if you don't have lahum. Right? So, lahum adhabun alim, when you read that Amira by itself, you're like, okay, this makes sense by itself. I don't need anything. So then you realize that your khabar in itself is a jumla. So once again, أولئك is a مبتدأ, لهم عذاب أليم, that entire thing is a جملة اسمية, and that جملة اسمية is the خبر of أولئك. Good? Grant, you get it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Muhammad Fardeen, number 21.
إن هذا لساحر عليم. إن is the حرف نصب. هذا is واسمها.
Okay, هذا is واسمها. It's the ism of it. Okay.
Yeah, لساحر is the مبتدأ. No.
مبتدأ متعلق بالخبر.
Yeah.
No. اسم إن is done. اسم إن, it was the مبتدأ. There's only one thing left. إن حرف النصب. هذا اسمها. ساحر is the
خبر.
And عليم is a?
عليم is the صفة.
That's it. إن حرف النصب. هذا is the اسم of إن. ساحر is خبر. عليم is the صفة. إن هذا لساحر عليم. Indeed, this is a knowledgeable magician. 11.5. He has and there is sentences. There are two sentences in Arabic where abnormal sentence structure is used. These structures are used in ordinary speech and not for rhetorical purposes. They are, he has sentences which express possession, and there is sentences which express the existence of something or someone. The متعلق بالخبر followed by مبتدأ مؤخر structure is used. Memorize the templates for each type of sentence. Possessive sentences, there are two templates that are commonly used to express possession. As stated previously, both of these templates are made up of a متعلق بالخبر مقدم followed by a مبتدأ مؤخر. In the first template, the متعلق بالخبر مقدم is made up of a حرف الجر لام followed by the owner of the item. The مبتدأ مؤخر is the item that is owned. لها شرب literally means for it is a right to drink, but لها شرب, she has a right to drink. Over here you have a abnormal sentence structure. لها is the متعلق بالخبر followed by the مبتدأ which is nakira and it is therefore مؤخر. لها شرب, right? It has the right to drink, or for it is the right to drink. Also, للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين. للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين. The male has equivalent or similar to that of the share of two females. Literally, for the male is the equivalent of the share of two females. If we were to do the i'rab of this, we would say للذكر is a jar and a majroor. That's our متعلق بالخبر مقدم. مثل is our what? Huh? مبتدأ مؤخر. حظي is مضاف إليه and the مضاف. حظي is the مضاف إليه and the مضاف. الأنثيين is مضاف إليه, right? مثل حظ الأنثيين is two إضافة constructions put together. Okay? مثل مبتدأ مؤخر. حظي مضاف إليه and مضاف, and الأنثيين is مضاف إليه, right? أنثيين is right, it's dual and it's showing that it's in a state of jar using a ya. So recall this template is the default for expressing possession and therefore has no balagha implications. In the second template, the متعلق بالخبر مقدم is made up of a عند special mudaf followed by the owner of the item. The mubtada muakhar is the item that is owned. وعنده أم الكتاب. وعنده أم الكتاب. And with him or in his possession is the essence or the original or literally the mother of the book. Meaning الكتاب is like the essence of the book or the original book. عند that's a متعلق بالخبر مقدم. عند is a متعلق بالخبر مقدم. is what? مبتدأ مؤخر. الكتاب is مضاف إليه. وعنده مفاتيح الكتاب, and with him meaning in his possession are the keys of the unseen. Once again, عنده is the متعلق بالخبر مقدم. مفاتيح مبتدأ مؤخر. الغيب مضاف إليه. It says this template using عند is used to express closeness but does not imply permanent possession as the first template using lam does. Drill 16, translate the following ayat using the word bank below. Translate the following ayat using the word bank below. قول, speech, مفلح, successful one, means or. Isa, read number 1.
For them is their sustenance, their provision.
أجرهم, not.
Oh, their reward.
Their reward.
Their light.
Yeah. لهم أجرهم ونورهم, right? For them is their reward and their light. For them is their reward and their light. Rama, lahum, the i'rab of it is? متعلق بالخبر مقدم أجر مبتدأ مؤخر هم is acting as مضاف إليه واو is حرف العطف and نور is مضاف نور is معطوف على أجر and هم is مضاف إليه لهم أجرهم ونورهم. Once again the translation would be for them is their reward and their light. Isa, no 2. Translate.
And for the disbelievers is a painful punishment.
And for the disbelievers is a painful punishment. Do it quickly, the i'rab.
للكافرين is the متعلق بالخبر مقدم. عذاب is the مبتدأ مؤخر. And أليم is صفة.
Good. He said للكافرين is a متعلق بالخبر مقدم. عذاب مبتدأ مؤخر أليم صفة. And for them is a painful punishment. 3. طيب.
لنا أعمالنا ولكم أعمالكم.
Which means?
For us. أعمالنا. Our actions.
Yeah, for us are our actions.
For us are our actions. ولكم, and for them.
For you.
Oh, for you are your actions.
Yes, for us are our actions, and for you are your actions. Lana is the.
لنا is the متعلق بالخبر مقدم. أعمال. أعمال is the مضاف مبتدأ مؤخر. The na is the مضاف إليه.
Yeah, and then you can look at لكم أعمالكم as a second sentence, right? But he said لنا is the متعلق بالخبر مقدم. أعمال مبتدأ مؤخر. Na is مضاف إليه. Number 4. Yeah, Noor. Read it. Translate it. Lakum. For your. Me. Kum. What's kum? What's the pronoun kum?
You all.
Okay, for you all. Okay, dinukum. Siraj, I'm like holding off. I feel like we need a break. Do like istighfar 100 times. I don't know what you guys did during the weekend. Okay, for you all, dinukum. What's the word deen mean? Okay, for you all is dinukum. Okay, listen. There's no way. You're like pranking me right now. Some guy's gonna pop out with the camera. Guys, for you all. Okay, what's deen mean? Okay, and dinukum. What's kum? Rama. Uh-huh.
And then
And to me is my religion. Lakum dinukum. For you all is your religion. For all of you is your religion. Get it, Noor? For you all is your religion. Waliyadeen, and for me is my religion. By the way, this is common in Arabic in the sense that you see how we translated the last part as waliyadeen, and for me is my religion, right? The origin of it is waliyadini. Okay, but this is common and commonly used in the Quran, where you eliminate the last ya. There's a ya there. You eliminate it, right? And the way you know there's a ya there, right, is the kasra on the noon. The kasra on the noon indicates that basically the ya al-mutakallim has been omitted, but it's there. So it's always there in the translation. So for example, in Surah Yasin, the man who wants to guide his people, he says, Inni amantu bi rabbikum fasma'un. Fasma'un, right? Inni amantu rabbikum fasma'un. Inni amantu bi rabbikum. Indeed, I have believed in your Lord. Fasma'un. Fasma'uni. Listen to me. Clear? So you see that used multiple times in the Quran, where there's a ya mutakallim, but like the Arabs have this, it's not specific to the Quran, but the Quran uses it a lot, where you omit the ya al-mutakallim, you leave the noon, right? And that noon usually separates between the word and the attached pronoun, or the verb and the attached pronoun, right? And the noon there with the kasra indicates that the ya al-mutakallim has been omitted. Huh? No.
Does it only have the end of the ayah? Or
Yeah, only happens at the end. So lakum dinukum waliyadin, for me is my religion, and for all of you is your religion, and for me is my religion. Okay, Noor, lakum is the
متعلق بالخبر مقدما.
متعلق بالخبر مقدما. دينكم مبتدأ مؤخر. Okay, and then waliyadin would be the same thing repeated. Yes.
The ya for the possessive ya, why does it have a fatha?
You can, good. He says, why does it have a fatha? The ya al-mutakallim, depending on where it appears, a lot of times you can go wali or waliya. Both are fine, right? Now, the narration of Hafs, a lot of them have it as waliya. That's how it was heard from the Prophet. But when you have the ya al-mutakallim added to a word like that, you can say li, or at times you can also put a fatha on the ya.
Just to confirm, when it's used for attached pronouns, the lam of possession, it's always a fatha except for with the ya al-mutakallim.
Correct. When it's used with pronouns, it's always lam with a fatha on it. Laka, lahum, except when it's used with the ya al-mutakallim. And when it's used with asma, when it's used with like objects or things, it's always li. طيب, I answered your question? Yeah, okay. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Khadija.
I have one more question related to the ya. So sometimes there's a shadda. So is that when you have a word ending with a ya and then you try to put that? Does that always take a kasra, a fatha after that? Like, or does it depend? So if there's a word that ends in ya and then you add the possessive ya, so you put a shadda on it.
The possessive ya, you mean
the ya
mutakallim?
So you put a shadda on it, yeah. But
so like for example, look, the word abun, make it dual. First of all, how do you make it dual? Abawani, you add the waw, remember? Abawani, okay. Abawani, we said in Arabic, indicates like it's a reference, it's a way of referring to both of your parents, right? Mother and father, abawani, right? Abawani, and what's the other version? Abawani. You with me? Abawani and Abawani. Abawani in the state of raf, Abawani in the state of nasb and jarr. Okay. Now, if I wanted to say in the state of nasbun, if I wanted to say in the state of raf'un, if I wanted to say my two parents, what would I say, Tayyib?
Abawani.
I gotta drop the noon.
Oh, أبوية.
Close.
أبوية.
What was the word?
أبواني.
Wani.
Wani.
Keep the alif there. Abawani.
Abawayi.
Abawaya. Okay. The way you would say my two parents is Abawaya. Abawaya.
Just because, why is there a fatha? Just because of the wow?
Yeah. To get the pronunciation. Yeah. So you would get Aba wa ya. Okay. That's in the state of Raf. In the state of Nasb and Jar, it would be
Abawiyya.
Abawayya. Because your word now was Abawayni. And you drop the noon. Your word is ending on a ya, and you have to add another ya. So now it's just going to be one ya with the shadda. So it's going to become Abawayya. Abawayni plus ya becomes Abawayya. Abawani plus ya becomes Abawaya. Okay, so when your word is ending in a ya and you have to add a ya mutakallim, it's basically going to be a ya with a mushadda. Khadija, 5.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise is to him, like praise is to him, Allah, or the Rabb, the all-knowing.
No, praise is for Allah, the Lord of the worlds.
Oh, sorry, I mean the Lord of the world. Yeah, okay.
Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Alhamdu is going to be your
mubtada, your subject.
Yeah, alhamdu is going to be the mubtada. Lillahi is going to be the
your khabar.
Yeah, your not your khabar, but your muta'alliq bil khabar. Your muta'alliq bil khabar.
Oh, okay. And
then Rabbil Alameen, we spoke about this in the last exercise, right? Essentially, this could be a sifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or a badal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But alhamdu is our mubtada, lillahi is our muta'alliq bil khabar. And we said praise and thanks is to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. 6, we've done it, but we'll just do it again. 6. Yeah, Muhammad Fardeen. Michelle.
إني لكم منه نذير مبين. Indeed, for you from him is a clear warner.
Say it again, louder, Michelle.
Indeed, for you from him.
No, indeed, I am for all of you.
Oh, indeed.
Indeed, I am for all of you. From him, a clear warner, guys. Indeed, I am. Inni, indeed, I am. Lakum, to all of you. Minhu, from him. Nadhirun mubin, a clear warner. We said inna is the harf nasb. The ya is the ism of inna. Lakum and minhu are both muta'alliqun bil khabar muqaddam. Nadhir is what, guys? Khabar muakhar of inna, and mubinun is a sifa. Joseph, 7.
Verily Allah is all-knowing.
Verily or indeed Allah is all-knowing. Inna harfu nasb. The word Allah ism of inna. Alimun is khabar of inna. Number 8. Number 8. Maryam Khidr.
Indeed, Allah is over everything, all capable.
Yeah, indeed, Allah is over everything capable. Maryam, do the i'rab of it. Inna is
حرف نصب.
حرف نصب.
الله اسم إن.
اسم إن على كل شيء.
متعلق بالخبر.
One more word.
قدير.
قدير is
طلب الخبر.
إن is حرف النصب. لفظ الجلالة is اسم إن على كل شيء متعلق بالخبر مقدم, and قدير is خبر مؤخر of إن. Good. Test. When's the test?
Which test?
Huh?
The first
Yeah,
week
my
of
test,
January.
my test, my test.
30 final week.
Huh? When is it, Amina? Huh? There's only cake? When? The week after next. It's a long time to wait for cake. A long time to wait. I know there was cake, but alhamdulillah, now that I know there's cake, I'll look forward to it. When's the test, guys? I mean, if you guys don't decide, I'll decide. I can say Tuesday at that point. You guys clearly don't want the choice. But when is it? In 2 weeks? This week. What day is it? Huh? Thursday? I would have taken Friday. No one said Friday, but it's too late.
Probably everyone would be in break mode.
Friday you would have been in break mode?
Want to be in break mode.
Because today it seems like everybody's in break mode. It seems like no one waited till Friday.
Recovering Friday.
It seems like you're preparing for Friday. Okay. I think vocab and having you do stuff like this where you translate it and break it down grammatically will be perfect. Will be then it'll basically help me determine who's coming back after Thanksgiving break, who's not. You know? And I'll probably even like wait to correct it an extra week just so I have to correct less tests. Number eight. Let's go. Number eight. We did 8. Sorry, 9. 9. Yeah, Bayan, go.
علمها عند ربي في كتاب. It means the knowledge of it is with my Lord in a book.
Good. علم is the what grammatically?
مبتدأ.
مرفوع. The ha is the
it's a مضاف إليه.
Perfect. عند ربي is a
متعلق بالخبر.
Good. And في كتاب is a jar majrur. You look at it as another متعلق بالخبر, right? The knowledge of it is with my Lord in a book. 10 we did already. أم له البنات ولكم البنون, or له البنات, because he have daughters and all of you have sons. له is the متعلق بالخبر مقدم. البنات is the مبتدأ مؤخر, right? 11 we did as well on the previous exercise. لهم دار السلام عند ربهم. طيب, the meaning is
for them Dar Salam, house of peace.
House of peace, protection. عند ربهم, with in the presence of their Lord, right? So لهم دار السلام, for them is an abode of protection, peace. عند ربهم, with their Lord. 12 read it. Ya Muhammad Ali, read it.
وأن الله شديد العذاب.
Translate quickly.
أن is حرف نصب. لفظ الجلالة is اسم أن. شديد is خبر and العذاب is مضاف إليه.
مضاف إليه. You still didn't do what I asked you to do. I mean, I appreciate you did what you did, but I asked you to translate.
Oh, sorry. Indeed, Allah is the most severe in punishment.
Yeah, just وأن الله شديد, and that Allah is severe in punishment. So Allah is severe in punishment. 13, yeah, Abdurrahman. Translate.
Indeed, there are clear signs for those who know, for those who are knowledgeable.
What? Read the entire Arabic again. Translate inna.
Verily, indeed, there is clear signs.
في ذلك. Translate في ذلك.
Indeed, in that.
Okay, indeed, in that there are
signs for those who know.
Yeah, for those who know, for those who have knowledge. Indeed, in that are signs for those that have knowledge, or the people of knowledge. إن في ذلك لآيات للعالمين. Inna is called, Abdurrahman, حرف النصب. في ذلك, that entire thing is playing the role of مقدم. لآيات نور نور. Yeah, I'm gonna take a 5-minute break. Let's take a 5-minute break. Go catch something. A fish?
No,
Go catch it.
Catch the bus.
Salam.
When you're done, I gotta cut it first. So this is sort of Baqarah. Starting from here, going to the end, is the order that like Allah is using the words to put emphasis on the words that it's from Him. And it seems like it is, but then this one is a verb. It could have went first. I know we haven't been over like ways when I guess you could change the order of verbal sentences. Is that what's going on here?
But yeah, obviously, yeah. So obviously it's the same meaning is going to be portrayed, but yes, like Allah is highlighting that they are giving from that which He has given them already. So that's being forwarded. And it is kind of like balagha, or like the rhetorical or eloquence of like there's been a message given to it.
So when we're dealing with Jumlat and Ismiyatun, it's this would be like muta'alliqun bil khabar, but you wouldn't say it like this in this instant because it's a verb. It's a verb.
It's a verbal sentence.
So how would you describe that? That like what is the grammatical way that he's doing it? How, like changing the order? How would you say that?
You'd say like technically like this is مفعول به مقدم. مفعول به مقدم.
So as opposed to
sorry. Take everything back. That's it. يؤمنون بالغيب ومما رزقناهم, and from that this is a verb. رزقناهم is a verb. رزقناهم is a verb. I was looking at this. I don't know why. رزقناهم is a verb. رزق means to give sustenance. Right.
So here it's not sustenance as a noun.
No, that would be rizqun. Razaqa, the verb razaqa, to give sustenance. And from that which razaqnahum, we have given them, they give.
So is the order like an unusual order here? In the sense that it's from what? Because it could have been like hypothetically right, like
you could change it. You could say yunfiquna mimma razaqnahum. You could change it, but Allah is putting, like, this is the order technically in which it happens too, right? Like, Allah gives to you, then you spend. That makes sense, right? So Allah is also giving it to you in the order in which it happens. And they, from which we have given them, they spend.
Okay.
As opposed to saying, and they spend from that which we have given them. Like, there's the idea of, like, this is the order in which it happened, but also, like, hey, they're spending from something that they already have.
Because I'm gonna share like this verse with somebody, the small talk, and yeah, it just stood out. Like, it seemed like you're saying the order was emphasizing that it's like a law. That's...
Yeah, I was looking, but no, it's Razaqa is a verb. Razaqa is a rizqun is the ism, but Razaqa is the verb.
But there's still like an intentional, you're saying
order, because it's not they just spend, but it's they spend from that which they already have.
Okay, thank you.
And what they already have was given to them by Allah. So Allah is emphasizing that we gave it to them,
and then they spend of that.
And they spend.
Okay, thank you.
In my community college, every class is really easy because they don't require you to put any vowels. So all you have to do is just write the words. And as long as you get it right, like for example, you could be saying "af'aluha," like I did it. I mean, I do it, but you don't have to put any vowels. So technically, it could be like, you know.
So you have to translate it?
Well, they just give you writing. So if you write a journal,
write the Arabic of it.
Yeah, you write the Arabic and you don't have to put the vowels. So it's nice.
Interesting.
I thought these things are to write.
No, but you know the vowels, mostly, but you don't have to. You don't have to put it. So it's easier.
All right, Bismillah, let's go. Let's go. Noor, you ready? What number are we on, Noor? Let's go. I don't think she was ready.
14.
Oh, 14.
Are we at 13 or 14?
13. You did 13.
Huh?
You did 13 before we left.
Didn't we take a step forward? Yeah. Because of 13?
Yeah.
We're still in the middle of.
Yeah, we're still in
Oh, in the
13.
middle of 13.
We're saying, go ahead, 13. Yeah. I was gonna ask you the word la ayat. See Arab of la ayat. اسم إن مؤخر نصب. Why is it نصب? How is it showing that it's going to say نصب?
Because
Why?
Because it is generally
Good. 14. 14. DJ. Translate it.
Indeed, you are the.
Me?
No, they.
He. He.
Okay, indeed he.
Indeed he.
Siraj.
Indeed.
Grant.
Indeed, it is the statement of a noble messenger.
Indeed, it is the statement of a noble messenger. Good. Indeed, it is a statement of a noble messenger. Abdurrahman, inna is called quickly. Harfu nasb. Grant, the who, the role it's playing. Ismu inna. طيب, قوله. خبر إن عيسى رسول مضاف إليه رامة كريم صفة. Good. Yeah.
What is
emphasis? Look, it shows up there, right? That lamb, guys. All of you seem to get not stuck, but I don't know. Sure, stuck. La qawlu, that lamb emphasis. Go to look at 13, guys. Look at 13. Inna fi dhalika la ayat. Emphasis, right? A few here on the previous exercise. On the previous exercise, 21. Inna hadha la sahirun. Lam, emphasis. Clear? 6. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُمْ لَرَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. Thank you. Lam, once again, there for emphasis, right? Has no grammatical effect. Yes. Okay.
So when you translate, would you say, for example, definitely it is definitely the statement of.
If it's gonna sound weird in English, no. Like if you can make it flow, yes, but it's gonna sound weird. Okay. 15. Yeah, Joseph. وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ.
وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. And verily we, or certainly we, to you or to him, is or are
راجعون, and indeed
men.
To him إليه راجعون, we will return. Joseph, inna is the harf al-nasb. What's after that?
إليه is a متعلق بالقبر.
What's after inna? What's it?
Oh, the na.
The what?
The na is the inna, or
is the ism of inna. طيب, إليه is the
متعلق بالقبر مقدما.
مقدما. And Joseph, راجعون is the
خبر
مؤخر. Good. 16. Muhammad Ali.
أولئك هم المفلحون.
Means
no, those are the successful ones.
Yeah, those are the successful ones. أولئك is your مبتدأ. هم is a ضمير الفصل. المفلحون is the خبر. Bayan, 17.
وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الرَّحِيمُ.
Translate.
And indeed your Lord is the most noble and merciful.
The Almighty.
And merciful.
Inna called Bayan.
حرف نصب.
حرف نصب. ربّ.
اسمه إنه.
اسمه إنه. The kaf is acting as a what?
مضاف إليه.
مضاف إليه. هو is a ضمير الفصل. العزيز is the
خبر
of inna, and al-Rahim was the second khabar of inna. 18, Michelle.
وَأُولَئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ.
Translate.
And for them is a painful punishment.
Say it. I can't hear you, Michelle.
Sorry. And for them is a painful punishment.
And for them missing something at the beginning.
And for those.
Yeah, for those people, you could say like for those, meaning those people, is a
painful punishment.
Yeah, like those people will have a painful punishment. You can go with those people will have a painful punishment. Ulaika, Michelle, is the
مبتدأ.
Yeah, speak louder, please. أولئك is the مبتدأ. لهم is the
خبر.
What's لهم? Noor. مقدم. عذاب. نور. سراج. ها؟ مبتدأ مؤخر. أليم. Finish. Emil, you went to UCLA? Huh? She's like UCI struggling right now. UCI struggling right now. The education system is oh man, it's looking rough at UCI now. Give me the crap, we used to go to UCI. Guys, we did this one. Wallahi, we did this one. We did this one. We stopped on this one for like 5 minutes. About 30 minutes ago. Yes? Yes? أولئك is your مبتدأ. لهم is your متعلق بالخبر مقدم, which Noor said. عذاب is your, what did you say, Noor? عذاب, Noor. مبتدأ مؤخر. أليم is the صفة. And then the last thing I needed for her was لهم عذاب أليم is the خبر of أولئك. Yes? Because this exercise 1 through 18 and what is it? 1 through 21 here, right? Like, I need you to study. I'm telling you from now, you're going to come on the quiz. And it's going to be translate, and it's going to be translate and label. It's going to be translate and label. Okay? And when I say label, by the way, when I say label, it's not going to be what we did right now. We did like the quick version of it. Okay? So for example, if you have إنه لقول رسول كريم, right? See 15 guys, or 16, you're going to say inna, you're going to write inna, next to it you're going to write harf al-nasb, then under it you're going to write ha, you're going to write no ضمير متصل في محل نصب اسمه إن. Yeah, I'm just gonna be right. Now everyone cares, huh? ضمير متصل, which is an attached pronoun, في محل نصب, in the position of nasb. And then you're just going to explain what role it's playing, which is the ism of inna.
But you can't say fi mahalli mansubun.
No, you don't say that. When you say fi mahalli, you say fi mahalli. Yeah, nasbun. Because the word mansubun is on the pattern of maf'ulun. So it's like it's been done onto. So you're not going to use that yet, right? And then la qawlu, you would say qawlu khabaru inna marfu'un rasulin مضاف إليه مجرور كريم صفة مجرور. Right?
What about one with the wow? Wow.
واو حرف عطف. واو حرف عطف.
Like in transliteration or in Arabic? Like do I have to spell it in Arabic?
Yeah. حرف عطف عين صفاء. Oh, so it's in the book, right?
I did have a question.
Yes, Isa.
So how do you know sometimes when there's a waw, there's what comes after is ma'tuf ala this is whatever came before. Sometimes you're just like it's a new sentence. How do you know when to?
So when I've said it's a new sentence, right? A lot of times the entire sentence, and I've just kind of avoided this, a lot of the times the entire sentence is ma'tufan ala the first sentence, right? But just to make it easy, I said this is a new sentence. But what's in reality happening, like for example, أم له البنات ولكم البنون. The entire لكم البنون is ma'tuf on the first sentence.
So when we say that,
I won't give you a sentence that has two parts to it. I'll only give you sentences that have. I won't give you a sentence that has a waw al-atf. I won't give you a sentence that has a waw al-atf. Huh? I know. You know, Ra'ufun Rahimun. Kind, you forgot kind. Okay. Thursday, huh? Thursday? Huh? What? No, people will drop out before 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. No wait that long. Huh? Thursday. There is no, sorry, what was I say? Thursday, vocab, cumulative. 1 through 11. Okay. I mean, I've tested you on 10 and 11 already. Yes?
Yes.
Yes? So it's just gonna be more vocab. Maybe instead of 50, it'd be like 100 or 200, I don't know. Whatever. But it'd be like, I'm gonna throw everything out there. Okay? Yes?
And these drills.
Huh?
And these drills.
And these drills. That's what you gotta worry about, right? That's what you, yeah.
You prepared us for this.
I thought I had. I thought I had last week.
I'm like, I'm telling myself. Yeah.
Okay. Says there is sentences are used to express the existence of something at a certain location. These sentences are also made up of a متعلق بالخبر مقدم followed by مبتدا مؤخر في قلوبهم مرض. There is a disease in their hearts. وبينهما حجاب. There is a barrier between the two of them. You notice that marad and hijab in the translation, right, is being brought forward. Like there is a sickness in their hearts. Technically, you can say in their hearts is a sickness, right? وَبَيْنَهُمَا حِجَابٌ, and there is a barrier between the two of them. You could also say, and between the two of them is a barrier. Right. We did this, right? Translate the following ayat, use the word bank below, provided below. We did this, yeah? That in the heavens is your sustenance, right? You could switch it and say, according to the exercise, your sustenance is in the heavens. Clear? Your sustenance in the heavens. Or fihi ayatun bayyinat, literally in it are clear signs, or there are clear signs in it. According to the exercise, they want you to go with the there is statements. Is that clear? Your sustenance is in the skies. There are clear signs in it. منهم المؤمنون وأكثرهم الكافرون الفاسقون. That from amongst them are believers, and however the majority of them are there are believers amongst them, and most of them are open sinners, right? Or from amongst them are believers and most of them are open sinners. No? Yes.
So there are is just in the way to say indefinite.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there a word for there in Arabic? This type of there, THER?
No. When we come to verbal sentences, something that's used a lot is like, especially if we want to ask about the existence of something, right? For example, if I said like, is there like a teacher in the classroom? Like I'd say, هل يوجد مدرس في الفصل? Is there a teacher in the classroom, right? The word يوجد comes from, anyone know? Yeah, وجد يجد. وجد يجد means to find. If you make that same verb passive, وجد يوجد means to be found. Essentially, is there. Get it?
Yeah.
وجد يجد, to find. وجد يوجد, to be found. Meaning, existing, right? So هل يوجد مدرس في الفصل? If you go to the store and you're asking about a particular item, right? You could say هل يوجد something something.
What about
Huh?
what about Hunak?
Hunak is like there. But yes, it is used like in
There is something.
yeah. Yeah. It's used like I would say more in modern Arabic is like hunaka, there is. Hunaka is used as a there is. But in reality, huna means here and hunaka means over there. Yeah. Okay. Oh wait, we have essentially we don't have much left. We have 11.6, just right. Which is drill 18, which is like 3 questions, and then we have that previous exercise, which was a translation. Drill 7, right? And besides that, you have finished the book. Sorry. Besides that, I have finished the book. You've been along for the journey. I don't know what some of you have done. Okay. With those 2 exercises, I'll have finished the book, and you guys will have been witnesses to that. I'm not sure what got out of it, but we'll see on Thursday, inshallah, what you got out of it. Okay? صلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. I guess I don't have an Arabic reader book. Okay, let's do this. Starting tomorrow, bring your Qasas al-Nabiyyin book. So that would mean tonight, find your Qasas al-Nabiyyin book, wipe off the dust, right? And then put it in your bag. The small one that's all in Arabic. Yes? We're starting tomorrow, bring that, please. And basically bring that continuously until I say don't bring it, or unless on a particular day I say don't bring it. Good? Yes? All right. صلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
This 11.5 he has, and there is something.
That was
so reading through that makes me forget everything.
Yeah, no.
I just can I just pretend to say like if I try to read this, I can't do anything. But I could do the exercise. Translating.
Yeah, that's why I rushed through them, because I was like.
And the thing is, for example, it makes more sense to me when I read in their hearts as a disease than there is a disease. Is that okay? Yeah,
as long as you understand it, because I can't think of a situation off the top of my head, but there may come a situation where essentially, like, it's almost literally impossible to make sense of it, reading it in their hearts and sickness. So you just know, hey, like, how can I play with it and get the same meaning? But as long as you get that, don't worry about the English. That's why I ran through it, because there's a lot of English there, and I'm like, dude, like, this is stuff you pick up naturally as opposed to like trying to codify it.
Yeah.
When you try to codify it, it gets too complicated.
Go ahead. This is what I wrote. I know I have some mistakes, I'm sure. So this is a more lenient class.
إجازتي المفضلة.
So I just wrote something to get the work in.
إجازتي المفضل هي السفر إلى يوسمتي في فصل الشتاء. أنا أحب يوسمتي كثيرا وأسرتي يحبونها كثيرا أيضا. في الماضي كانت السفر في الماضي كانت في الماضي كنت أسافر في الماضي. Or you can say, you can also say like the word like سابقا, like previously. في الماضي كنت أسافر أنا وأسرتي كل سنة إلى سنتي في الشتاء نخرج من البيت مبكرا في السيارة في السيارة يقود والدي. You could say السيارة يقود. I would say like something like كان أبي يقود السيارة. كان أبي يقود السيارة. My father like he would be the one that drives, right? Whenever you have kana and a fi'l mudari, it indicates like this happened more than once. Does that make sense? Yeah. So like kana abi yaqud السيارة, he would be the one driving the car.